Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the full season review of Pokemon Mega Voltage, the first arc after the time skip on Pokemon Horizons. This arc had a lot of things to juggle: the return of characters, both our heroes, and bringing back the adults, the reintroduction to the villains on what they're trying to do and accomplish now that they have the narrative on their side, taking people who used to be part of the villain group and bringing them into the hero side, and introducing a brand new protagonist that is going to be a permanent fixture of the show going forward. It had a ton of things to juggle, including the growth of our heroes after the time skip itself. And while I'll go into my overall thoughts on the entire arc as a whole more at the end of the video, this is one of the more unique arcs we've had because this is the first time we've had a time skip. So let's buckle up. Here is the full season review of Pokemon Horizons Mega Voltage. Mega Voltage, the post-time skip arc of Pokemon Horizons, is finally here, and it starts off with a bang as we get a 1-hour special, starting it off with episode 90, titled To the Skies Once More Part 1. A year has passed since the last episode, and a lot has changed, including major developments. So, let's talk about it. I have a feeling that this series will probably be focusing more on Roy than Liko. After about a year, Dot has contacted a slightly more grown-up Roy. He's rocking a slightly different haircut, and he's seemingly adventuring with Cap. What's the contact about? She recently got some info that something weird is happening with Pokemon where Roy is, and she wants him to investigate it. Sure enough, we see that a Slacking, usually a docile and lazy Pokemon, is up and way more active and aggressive than usual. It's also surrounded by pink mist, which means it could be Lockrium. However, as Roy is investigating this, we see another kid behind him, challenging him to a battle. Now, this kid's name has been a topic of debate online. His name is this right here. It's most likely a play on the Japanese word for alt, or ultra, or ultimate. So people thought that his English name would end up being Alt, similar to Go for Pokemon Go. But a few days ago, the official Pokemon Anime Twitter page romanized his name in English as Uruto, so I don't know what to use. For now, I'm gonna use Alt since it's so much easier to say, but if when the dub comes out they decide to go with Uruto, I'll start using Uruto. Anyways, it seems like Alt and Roy have had a relationship in the past, as Alt wants to battle Roy with his Sableye. Alt says that he wants to Black Rayquaza, which is another one of Roy's goals. However, for Alt, that's his main goal. We don't know why, but we'll probably find out in the future. Just as we find this out, the Slacking is gone. Roy tries to tell him that he's focusing on Slacking right now, not Black Rayquaza, but Alt isn't having it, and follows him. Eventually, Roy's Kilowattrel spots the Slacking. Alt's Sableye gets near the Slacking, which causes it to get very aggressive and start battling. This Slacking is super powerful. It has potential to even hurt the forest animals who Roy's worried about. The Slacking eats attacks from Roy's Crocalor, Kilowattrel, and even Alt Sableye, and just shakes it all off. As Roy's thinking about the power of Lockrium causing this, Alt tells him that he needs to prepare for a battle. So with that, Roy pulls out a brand new Pokemon, a shiny Lucario. It's cool to see another shiny Pokemon for one of our main characters here. How did he get it? I have a feeling we'll also learn about that in the future. But for now, not only is his Lucario shiny, but he can Mega Evolve. And Alt, he can also Mega Evolve his Sableye. The two work really well together, and eventually they're able to defeat the Slacking, despite Slacking being so powered up from the Lockrium that its Hyper Beam was pink. After the battle, the Slacking seems to have calmed down, and Roy tells Dot about everything. As they're discussing it, they're surprised that Lockrium is still around. They thought that after they destroyed it back then with the 6 hero Pokemon, it wouldn't be around anymore. So they're trying to figure out why it could be back. Roy wants to fulfill his promise to Lucius, who told our heroes that only they could get rid of Lockrium. Dot says that she's gonna look more into what might be causing this for now, before her mom comes into the room to give her favorite snack, causing Dot to get embarrassed and close the phone call. For Roy, he feels like even though the Voltaclers are no more, he still wants to tell Liko that their adventures aren't over yet. And it seems like for now, Alt will follow him since they have similar goals with the Black Rayquaza. So Roy allows him. However, as night falls and morning arrives, Roy is gone, ditching Alt. We then see what happened to Liko all this time. She is acclimated to the school life after the Voltaclers broke apart, and her roommate has become an accomplished battler. Even the Blueberry Academy principal Cyrano has gotten in touch with her. And while we know that Liko herself is pretty strong, she doesn't have her full complement of team anymore. It seems like after destroying the massive Lockrium crystals, Terapagos has gone on hibernation and hasn't woken up since. For Liko, she still thinks about the Voltaclers, yet she seems to distance herself from them. She hasn't watched any of Dot's recent Nidothing videos, when she used to be the biggest Nidothing fan, and that might also be partially due to the fact that Spinel has taken over as Exceed Company's president and convinced the world that the strange behavior around the globe of Pokemon being aggressive is due to the Voltaclers destroying Laqua. They become villainized in the eyes of the world. Only the people involved and Anne seem to know the truth, but even when Anne wants to tell people about the truth, Liko stops her. And realistically, it makes sense. The last time she was with the Voltaclers, she seemingly witnessed someone's death. That has to be traumatic. She doesn't feel like she has a goal, unlike Anne, who's moving forward. And she realized that the truth of what happened that day is changing right in front of her. And she feels like she can't do anything about it. As all of these thoughts are going through her head, as she's standing at the top of her school, Roy yells out, flies into his killer watch. Liko sees him for the first time in a year, and that's where we end this episode. The first part of the episode had a lot of setup, but I think it did a pretty good job. It didn't feel like an overwhelming amount of exposition. The story had a natural progression from the last time that we saw our heroes, and it left us questions. Questions about Alt and his goals. Questions about what Spinel might have done to cause Lockroom to still be around. Questions about how Roy got not only the shiny Lucario, but also Mega Evolution. There are a ton of questions that this episode sets up, while progressing the story from the end of the previous one. Let's see what part 2 holds for us, as our heroes meet for the first time in a year. As for Alt, we'll see how I feel about him. I don't like his design, straight up. I think I talked about that in my video when he got revealed. And this episode didn't help him do it any more justice, as he seems to be one of those stubborn characters that talks quite a lot and causes issues. Maybe the more I get to know him, I won't mind those traits, but for now, that's not the case. So we'll have to see how much I'll be able to stand this guy. Episode 91 of Pokemon Horizons, titled Once More to the Skies Part 2, is here, and we are continuing from last episode when Roy arrived at Indigo Academy. We know what he's here for, but will he be able to convince Liko? Let's talk about it. The episode is really focused on 3 things. 1. Letting us know how the Voltaclers are perceived by the public. 2. Liko trying to accept her call to adventure. And 3. Seeing just how strong Roy has become. After Roy arrives in the roof, he tries to talk to Liko, but is interrupted by other students that are coming up, and also arrives and meets with Roy, but before Roy can talk to Liko, she decides to stop him. All the other students around her think that Roy is cool and that he's about to do some sort of confession, and Liko doesn't want to deal with that. They talk a bit outside before moving into the cafeteria. Anne is pulled away by some students who want her help in battle, so this gives Liko and Roy some time alone. Roy tells Liko about being contacted by Dot and finding the Slacking surrounded by pink mist. They think that it's Lockwheel, and Liko's shocked to hear that. Roy asks Liko for her help, saying that maybe Terapagos can help them find out where this is coming from, but Liko lets him know that Terapagos hasn't gotten up since the events of Laqua, and more importantly, it seems Liko is still traumatized by the end of their adventure, so she tells Roy that she can't help them. Meowscarada notices this too, and comes back to a gloomy mood on the table, so she tells them they should battle. Roy's down for it, but Meowscarada has disappeared, so Liko goes looking for it. Outside, Roy brings out his shiny Lucario as him and Anne begin battling, and as their battle is going on, other students start coming around to see what's happening. Anne apparently has a unique 3-sword style, which the students are impressed by, but just then, 2 students who recognize Roy as from the Voltaclers also arrive and begin talking. Liko eventually finds Meowscarada watching the battle from the roof, and Liko sees Roy's new Pokemon, and this makes her reflect on what she's doing. She feels like Anne, Roy, and Dot are all moving forwards with their goal, but she hasn't. Meowscarada then goes back down to the courtyard. As the battle between Anne and Roy continues, Liko overhears words spreading about Roy being a part of the Voltaclers and how they're dangerous. In this battle itself, Roy has Lucario Focus, and the 2 sync together to use his wave guiding ability to dodge Anne's Droll Run before countering with close combat, which KOs Samurott. Then, Liko and Meowscarada arrive to battle as word about Roy is spreading even more. The battle between Roy and Liko begins, and it's a good one. The battle is Liko using Flower Trick in unique ways to confuse and do damage to Crocolore. As the battle goes on, Liko gets more into the battle. Crocolore, meanwhile, is using super effective moves to do big damage to Meowscarada. We also get to hear an awesome rendition of the Area Zero theme for this battle. I think we've heard it once before, but it's always good to hear. Liko's Meowscarada is able to tangle up Crocolore and use Flower Trick on it to do damage on it. After this, Liko realizes that while it felt like she wasn't moving forward, she actually has gotten stronger, and this battle with Meowscarada proved it to her. So with that done, the 2 decide both to terrasilize their Pokemon. Crocolore is able to overpower Meowscarada by taking Flower Trick head on and using Flame Charge. That kills Meowscarada, which means that Roy wins. The kids then approach Roy and ask him if he's a member of the Voltaclers, and when Roy says he is, they confront both Anne and Liko about it. This is when Liko tells everyone, and herself in a way, that she is indeed a rising Voltacler. That seems to free her up, and she decides that she actually does want to adventure again. So at the end of the day, she packs up everything she needs and heads out to the bus stop. Anne also confirms here while talking to Roy what I'd been saying in the last episode as well as this one, that before what just happened, Anne felt like Liko just had a cloud hanging over her, and the admission to everyone that she indeed is a Voltacler seems to have freed her from that mindset. Liko arrives and says that they're going to get the truth back about the Voltaclers before the new intro plays. Then afterwards, Liko is confident that she can go wherever, as long as she's with her Pokemon. We then see Spinel somewhere with 5 of the hero Pokemon in some sort of glass cage. He says soon everyone will bow before him, just like these hero Pokemon, and that's where we end the episode. Since I won't get a chance to talk about it on the other episodes, I want to talk about the new opening here. The previous opening, while the visual was good, I didn't like the song too. This one, both the song and the visuals are pretty solid. The one thing that caught my eye with this opening is just the Nimona inclusion. Now, I don't know if that means she'll actually show up or if it's just a reflection of everyone that Liko and Dot have known in the past, but me and my friends thought that the primary Scarlet and Violet characters were not going to make an appearance anymore, since they would have to age them up a year as well if they're part of the story, and I thought they wouldn't want to change that in the anime for game characters, but maybe I'm wrong. Again, we don't know if she'll actually show up, but it's cool to see that they don't mind updating the game characters' looks based on the anime. We also see in the opening the other Explorers member, including an updated look for Coral and a better look at Spinel. We also see that Alt is holding an ancient Pokeball here, which really throws a lot into the works and way more questions to be asked. An overall solid opening. As for the episode itself, I like the way that this episode portrayed sadness and bottled up feelings in a way that kids would understand. Liko's behavior over the last 2 episodes clearly were showing it, and I like the way that the thing that breaks her out of it is the thing she talks about at the end of the episode, her Pokemon. Even though the show is seemingly going to focus more on Roy now, it's easily obvious why she works so well as a protagonist in a way that I just don't think Roy can. Liko has realistic emotions for this show. Roy is closer to your standard shonen protagonist who will work hard and keep moving forward no matter the obstacles. Both obviously have their own merits. Speaking of Roy, he's also gotten incredibly strong, and the episode makes sure we know that. And apparently people are upset that Roy can connect with his Lucario and use wave guidance. People on Twitter are arguing whether Roy should be allowed to do that, like that's just some ability or some right that Ash Ketchum and Sir Aaron have. I don't even know what to say about that. The internet is so dumb sometimes. Does this make him Ash Ketchum? Sure. As much as Ash Ketchum is your standard protagonist character, I agree. Roy being a battle-focused character that has a Lucario doesn't make him Ash 2.0 to me. It just makes him another Pokemon protagonist. Speaking of, I felt bad for Anne here. It feels like she's always used as the measuring stick for our heroes in order to show how strong they've become. And it doesn't feel quite like Yamcha from Dragon Ball, since Anne is super close to our main characters, but it still sucks seeing someone being touted as an incredible battler who's part of the school select team and is being contacted by the Blueberry Academy principal lose so soundly to someone who decided to train by themselves, and seemingly also Liko, who held up way better against Roy than Anne did. And her battle is cut short to show how awesome Liko is. I understand that that's just life for side characters, but I can't help but feel bad. Instead of Alt, I would have loved for Anne to be the 4th member of this group. Oh well. Overall though, a solid episode to bring back Liko into the fold. I'm curious as to see if her and Dot will be the only ones, or will eventually all the Voltacklers return. I hope they do. I feel like the story though will be closer to the Legend ZA story, so I don't know if a lot of things from the previous story are going to return. I'm curious to see what Spinel's plan is, because I think that might be similar to what we get in Legend ZA. A lot of exciting possibilities here. Episode 92 of Pokemon Horizons, titled Follow the Lockrium Signs, just dropped, and our heroes continue to chase after Pokemon who have seemingly been affected by Lockrium. This time, it's a Steelix, and it causes something major to happen. What is it? Let's talk about it. This episode has a major return, but I don't know how to feel about it. For now, let's just talk about how we got there. Roy and Liko talk to Dot on their phones while Ult is looking for Roy. He finds them, but hides because Liko's there. He's seemingly scared of girls. At least that's what his Sableye is implying. Liko is nervous to talk to Dot after so long. They talk about a potential new Pokemon that has been affected with Lockrium. They head to the canyon looking for that Pokemon, where Roy has this Pokemon search from the air while he searches from the ground. Liko sees how beautiful the area they're in and remembers the Terrestrial Course adventures they used to have. She also tells Dot that the Terapagos hasn't woken up since Laqua, but Dot is reassured when Hatchram seems to be relaxed about it. Roy and Cap come across holes on the ground. Cap notices someone following them, causing Ult, the person following Roy, to fall down one of those holes. Liko and Roy investigate the ground being softened up by something, as well as pink mist in the air. Dot calls these Lockrium signs. As Ult goes deeper into the cave he fell into, he notices a Steelix, and he realizes that it's a similar situation to the Slacking situation with the pink mist, so he runs away. The Steelix sees him and gets angry and starts rampaging. The Steelix is fast and dodging everything, so Roy has his Lucario use wave guidance to predict where Steelix is coming from and hit it with close combat, followed by a flower trick from Liko's Meowscarada. However, Steelix's physical defenses are extremely tough, so it doesn't affect it at all. Dot tells our heroes that they need to get a hit in with Flamethrower from Crocolore, and to allow that, they need to provide support from all their other Pokemon. This allows us to get a rare require full participation from all the Pokemon in the field. A response probably to the pretty common complaint where prior, it felt like only the starters ever got love. Lucario uses Wave Guidance to spot Steelix so that Meowscarada can try and keep it in place. However, Steelix fires a rock move at Crocalor and Kilowattrel. That gets stopped by confusion from Hatchrim, and the rocks are blown up by Cap. As Crocalor is about to use Flamethrower though, Steelix jumps back inside the hole. A disarming voice and uproar combo inside the hole forces out Steelix. However, before Crocalor can use Flamethrower, a second rock comes out of nowhere and smacks down both Kilowattrel and Crocalor. It is a second enraged Steelix. The two enraged Steelix then begin attacking our hero's Pokemon. Crocalor and Kilowattrel get hit by Sand Tomb due to smackdown from the other Steelix earlier. Then they prevent Cap from saving the Pokemon, and Lucario has to dodge attacks from them. Meowscarada also manages to get away from one of the Steelixes and prevent it from attacking with Flower Trick, only to get attacked by a second Steelix. But before he can get a hit, a Power Gem out of nowhere saves Meowscarada. It's Ult with a Sableye. He comes out of nowhere and says that the Black Rayquaza is his before realizing the situation. As he talks with Roy, the two come to the same idea. They Mega Evolve their Pokemon. The Mega Evolution allows Lucario to get some damage in with Metal Claw and Close Combat, and Sableye to be able to use Confuse Ray and Power Gem to confuse and damage the Steelix. However, the two Pokemon are not down yet. Then, the two Steelixes charge at the two Mega Evolved Pokemon only to crash into each other. Crocalor then arrives with Cap and Kilowattrel and is able to use Flamethrower on the two Steelixes. However, now, the two Steelixes are fighting each other. Like Dot says, the Lockwium is causing them to not see friend from foe. Liko remembers this exact same thing happening in Laqua with the hero Pokemon. She tries to get the Steelix to stop by running at them and saying they should stop, and she's about to get hit by a smackdown rock when all of a sudden, Terapagos arrives to protect her. This is the return I was talking about, and I don't know how to feel about it. I'm annoyed at Liko for running at two Pokemon fighting each other, especially after her experience in Laqua where that caused so much destruction. She's lucky that Terapagos woke up again. Maybe it's because I'm a Naruto fan, but I hate that trope where the female member of the group runs towards two fighting Pokemon. Ash did this in the first movie too. It never works out well. Terapagos then absorbs all of the Lockwium from the two Steelixes, causing them to both go down in a heap. Liko is really happy to see Terapagos, and Hatchrim heal pulses the two Steelixes. They wake up, look at each other, and then walk away. Roy then introduces Ult to Liko, who thanks him for helping Meowscarada. Ult, however, turns away from Liko, saying it was nothing. However, when he looks for Sableye, he doesn't see it. Instead, they spot it trying to eat Terapagos. They're able to stop it. That's when Liko asks about the Mega Evolution. We then cut to a video of Nidothing explaining Mega Evolution to those that might not know. We also get to see tons of tips about Pokemon being affected by Lockwium everywhere, and she wants to know what might be causing it. Meanwhile, Ult is still following along with our heroes, and when Liko asks why, that's when he explains it's because of the Black Rayquaza. While he's explaining his reasoning and yapping on, Roy drags Liko ahead of him because he doesn't want Ult to be tangled in their journey. When Ult is done yapping, he realizes that he has been left behind once again. Finally, we cut to a meeting somewhere between Hamber, Zur, and Konya. They haven't spoken to Hamber in over a year, and the two say that they regret not being able to protect Ametheo. However, Hamber says that him and Crave don't believe the official narrative from Spinel, that being, Ametheo betrayed Gibeon and the two perished in the ensuing struggle. So, he gives Zur and Konya the Zygarde cubes to find Zygarde to help find the whereabouts of Ametheo before Ametheo finds out, and before it becomes too late for all of them. And that's where we end this episode. I don't know how to feel about Terapagos returning this quickly. I thought that was going to be a major part of this series, to try and eventually get Terapagos to return. Clearly that wasn't in their plan, so I wonder why they even had the first two episodes where they made it a big deal even a thing. Heck, it's a big deal in the poster of this series for Mega Voltage. So if they're just gonna have it only be a thing for 2 episodes, why even focus on this? Such a bizarre decision. So many different things happened here, so let's try to go in order. Ult seems to have some sort of weirdness with girls. His Sableye made fun of him for that. So it's either going to be something big or serious, or just a gag that's going to be played up. I don't know what it's going to be. There's also seemingly a history of Ult and Roy that we know of, and how they met, and how the two got Keystones and Mega Evolutions. All intriguing things, but I think that's going to be a while before we get answers to that. To me, the more intriguing questions are what happens at the end of the episode. What has Spinel done to cause Lockwium to spread everywhere around the world, and what is his endgame? And second, what happened to Ametheo? He left with Zur and Konya in Laqua, so what happened? He got caught? By who? Spinel? And for what? Why did Crave leave his position? Why does Hamber not want Ametheo to find out that he's being searched for? And what has Hamber so shook that he's entrusting Zur and Konya, two of the weakest members of the former explorers, to embark on this? There are so many questions here and so much uncertainty in this world. I am really intrigued. Episode 93 of Pokemon Horizons titled A Super Stan? A Nidothing fan battle just dropped, and in this episode, Liko takes on a Nidothing super fan who has an Incineroar. How will it go? Let's talk about it. This is a bit of a filler episode, so I won't have much to say, but I do like the seeds that this episode plants. This episode begins with Nidothing doing a live stream, asking her fans if they've seen any legendaries or special moves from Pokemon, but no one answers, until a comment says that they saw a black Rayquaza. So with that information, our heroes go to check that out. They arrive in Chaba Town before they meet up with this person who says they saw the black Rayquaza. She is a Nidothing superfan with Nidothing merch, and her username is Litten Superfan. She's upset to see that Nidothing isn't actually there, so she won't tell our heroes where she saw the black Rayquaza. She has to be convinced by Nidothing on the phone. She then takes our heroes to a empty field where she says she saw it somewhere over here. But during that conversation, learns that our heroes are actually from the Voltaclers and gets legitimately angry at them. She talks about how Exceed has told everyone that they're the reason for Mount Kumari's environmental ruination and the reason for all the Pokemon rampaging around everywhere. She challenges our heroes, saying that if she wins, they have to leave Nidothing alone, because if people find out that her two staff were Voltacler members, she would get hate comments. And Liko kinda understands that, so she wants to defend the honor of the Voltaclers, so she takes her on. The battle is one of strength versus experience between Litten fans Incineroar and Liko's Meowscarada. Roy talks about how strong the Incineroar is, but Liko notices while battling that it's a pretty straightforward movement style. So after taking a flamethrower from it the first time and strategizing a bit, she's able to lay a trap on the Incineroar by placing the explosive bud right in front of its belt, causing it to blow itself up and do major damage when it uses flamethrower. However, before the battle can continue, Alt runs towards our heroes as he's being chased by a massive group of Dodrio whose territory he went towards, and a massive flock of Spearow whose territory he also went towards. Alt and Litten Fan are ready to battle all these Pokemon and to send them away, but Liko and Roy don't want to do that. Liko says that if they calm them down, they should go away on their own. So they slow down the Pokemon without hurting them, entertain them a bit with Flower Trick and singing, until eventually all the Pokemon calm down and leave. This convinces Litten Fan that maybe the Voltaclers aren't how they're portrayed. She also admits that she lied about seeing the black Rayquaza. She just wanted to meet Nidothing. Alt and Sableye leave after hearing this because he's still chasing our heroes looking for the black Rayquaza. Afterwards, she explained that she just wrote that in the chat without thinking about it. She says that she was actually jealous of Liko, which is why she stole her naming style. She just wanted to be friends with Nidothing, but Nidothing assures her that she appreciates all of her fans equally, and even though she's friends with Liko in real life, she wouldn't give her special treatment in her chat. With all that, Litten Superfan does say that she will support the rising Voltaclers and tell everyone that they are awesome people who care about Pokemon. And as the episode ends, I think that's the most important thing that this episode is seeding. Yes, our heroes want to get the truth out about the Voltaclers, but something like that doesn't happen instantly. Even if they were to beat Spinel, that doesn't mean anything. A lot of people are gonna still believe they were the reason for Mount Kumari's destruction. So I think when we get episodes like this, which are a bit more filler, it's more about establishing things in the world that'll slowly change people's minds about the Voltaclers. Through their action and how they treat Pokemon, people might start rethinking what they've been told about the Voltaclers, and that could end up being a major turning point in the story. That's just my theory though. As for this episode, it's a good enough episode. The battle was smart and showed off how much smarter Liko has gotten as a battler. I wish we got to see more about the town they were in. As someone who grew up around these farm areas, it always brings back memories for me. People in rural farm areas work really hard, and we kind of got to see that a little bit with the teal mask, but I wish we got to see it more often in the Pokemon anime. Always fun to see. Alta's still following our heroes, and so far, he's being used like Team Rocket from the old anime, except instead of stealing Pikachu, he just happens to stumble upon our heroes and help them. I do wonder where his story is headed though. I'm curious to find out. But other than that, it's a solid, fun episode that is skippable. I'd say the battle is worth watching anyways. Episode 94 of Pokemon Horizons titled The Pokemon Center Lady just dropped, and in this episode, our heroes meet Molly again. How does the reunion go? Let's talk about it. Our heroes are in a hotel of some sort eating and getting ready to rest when they overhear people in the lobby talking about how recently in a nearby forest, Pokemon are losing their strength and Pokemon Center is getting packed because of it. They decide to investigate. Meanwhile, we see in the Pokemon Center, Molly's working there as a Pokemon Center lady. She finishes her shift and her mom asks her how things went. Molly responds, "It's the same old, and she feels her cheek from smiling all day. Molly isn't a smiley person usually, so that's not surprising. And when she gets a notification on her phone that the forest Pokemon are injured, she jumps straight into action despite her mom telling her she should probably rest. When Liko and Roy arrive at the forest, they're spooked by the darkness and eventually just go towards the noise. That's when they meet Molly. They talk about what she's been doing since they've been apart, and she explains that she works in her mom's Pokemon Center. When Liko and Roy explain that they're reunited as the Voltacler, trying to resolve the Locrium issue, Molly tells her that they shouldn't be calling themselves themselves the Voltaclers anymore because that group has been disbanded. And we see a flashback of the moment that decision was made. However, Liko and Roy won't just get rid of that name because both of them have realized that the Voltaclers who they are. They talk about how they were able to convince the Nidothing fan from last episode that the Voltaclers aren't bad. That's what their goal is. They want to resolve the Lockroom issue and get the truth of the Voltaclers. Molly says that if that's the case, they should follow their heart. Then they hear more stuff around them. When they go investigate, there's an entire group of Pokemon in the trail that have been poisoned. As Molly goes around healing them, she notices pollen, meaning that the Pokemon doing this is a Vileplume. Molly says that usually this Vileplume gets along with everyone, but that's when Roy notices the Lockroom sign. And so, Liko and Roy have their Pokemon ready to battle. Croclore and Meowscarada then go at the Vileplume, only to get toxic. Liko and Roy have their Pokemon attack from a distance, but the Vileplume is too powerful, so they recall them. Roy then brings out his Lucario since it can't get poisoned, and has it use Metal Claw, but Vileplume's Effect Spore paralyzes it. Liko then brings out Hatchrim to hit it with Confusion from range, which does super effective damage, but isn't strong enough, and Vileplume is recovering health using Giga Drain on it. It has to be protected by Lucario from getting hit again, and the poison powder has to be sent away by Tidy Up from Mousehold and Kilowattrel flapping its wings. Liko encourages it, saying it can do it, and terastallizes Hatchrim into a Psychic type. That's when it uses Confusion, as Mousehold uses Follow Me to distract Vileplume. However, before it can be finished off, Hatchrim feels Vileplume's feelings, and feels how bad it feels for hurting its friends. So, instead of attacking it, she wants to heal it. Everyone decides to trust Liko and Hatchrim, so Hatchrim uses Heal Pulse while flying on Kilowattrel. Then, it uses a new move, Healing Wish. Healing Wish causes the user to faint, and in return, the Pokemon's HP gets fully restored, and their status fully cured. And it seems to work, as Hatchrim faints, and Vileplume also stops moving after being healed, allowing Terapagos to absorb and get rid of the Lockroom from Vileplume. Even though it's healed, the Vileplume is still exhausted, most likely due to the Lockroom, so Molly decides it's best to take it to the Pokemon Center to treat it. Inside, as they're waiting, Liko and Roy overhear someone talking about a new sphere that can be used in battle. That will be more important starting next episode. Molly then brings back everyone's Pokemon, including the Vileplume, and asks Liko and Roy to take it back to the forest. However, before they do, Liko asks Molly if she would like to join them. It would allow her to heal Pokemon around the world. However, Molly says that she'll keep helping out here, as she's still learning things being here. However, she says that if the opportunity ever arrives to get back in a flying airship and go on an adventure, she will be back. As Molly helps out another kid with their Pokemon, Liko and Roy talk about how cool Molly is. When they take Vileplume back to the forest, it looks like it might not be able to go back since so many Pokemon might be scared after it attacked, but the Pokemon of the forest greet it, so all seems to end well. Cap then hears something and has our heroes go through the forest where they come across an Exceed Corporation building, and that's where we end the episode. It's interesting to watch how the team has changed since the disbandment of the Voltaclers. Molly at the beginning of the Horizons was very adverse to being a traditional Pokemon Center lady. However, now that she's done it for a while, she sees value in it. Her bringing up the idea that if there were another flying ship, she would be on board feels like foreshadowing. I could be wrong though. I do like that the Mousehold are with Molly and helping her out. The Mousehold got their own special episode, and it always felt strange to me that no one ever caught them. They were just part of the ship's crew. But now that they're separated, the Mousehold presumably are Molly's. I wonder if that means the other members of the Voltacler, the Pokemon I'm talking about, are other people's Pokemon. For example, does Murdoch have the Tatsugiri now? What about the rest of the Pokemon? Did they all get abandoned? Are they with someone? I would love to know. Even though this feels like a nothing episode, this episode is actually pretty important because it seemingly sets up the Lockroom sphere arriving in the story. And from what Liko and Roy are overhearing, it's an item used in battle. The last time we saw a version of it, when Spinel used it on his Umbreon, it massively increased the Pokemon's strength while making it more feral. I wonder how much it's changed since then. And I wonder how much of the Pokemon are going crazy because of this thing. All of these will seemingly be answered as our heroes come across the Exceed building at the end of the episode, so I'm curious to see where the story is headed, especially with Urto, who will also seemingly have a Lockroom sphere. Will he be helping out the explorers? I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. Episode 95 of Pokemon Horizons titled The Strong Sphere just dropped, and our heroes head to the building of Exceed where they are promoting the Strong Sphere. What are they and what do they do? Let's talk about it. Our heroes are eating breakfast and talking to Dot about the building they saw at the end of last episode. She tells them that it's Exceed's testing center. Turns out they're testing a brand new product there called the Strong Spheres. Curious, our heroes decide to check it out. As they're sneaking around outside the building, a bus full of trainers pulls up, and they notice a sad-looking Urto also entering the building. They get caught by the security outside, so they decide to go in. There, they see Dash, one of the girls that they met during the Terrestrial training course. She's there with her Swanna. The host then hands her a Strong Sphere because she's a weak trainer, and Liko immediately clocks that as the same thing Spinel used in Laqua. Even Terapagos comes out of its Pokeball. The other host then brings out an Electivire, a Pokemon that's 4 times super effective against Swanna. Dash thinks that this is going to be a losing battle, so she uses the sphere and it powers up her Swanna, making it very quick and able to dodge electric attacks. Then when she has it use Water Gun, the blast turns pink and massive, causing it to almost look like a hydro pump before it KOs the Electivire, giving her the win. Uruto is questioning this. Liko and Roy talk about how the sphere made Swanna seemingly go on a rage similar to the wild Pokemon that they battled so far, meaning it's made from Lockwium. They then talk to Dash when she comes up, and they notice that her Swanna is super tired from that battle. She leaves to rest her Pokemon. Roy then goes down to Uruto to talk to him when Uruto blows him off. Then the host starts another part of the event. They introduce members of the Explorers as celebrity special guests. It's Coral and Sidian. They seem to have legitimate fans in the crowd too. They're here for an exhibition match when they notice our heroes, so they decide to call them up to battle. Liko and Roy go up there, declining the strong spheres, and up there, call out the two for using the spheres even though they know the dangers. The Explorers have the crowds on their side, however, and Sidian just says they're a great invention before he and Coral bring out their Pokemon. The battle starts and it's an all-out battle. Roy even comments that the Explorers have gotten stronger. Glalie uses a combination of Ice Spinner and Blizzard, making it hard to attack, while Salt Cure is also coming at them from Garganacl. So Liko has the Pokemon stay back to back and use Flower Trick all over the floor to stop Glalie, and Roy has Crocalor use Flamethrower to do massive damage. The Explorers then bring out the strong spheres and use it on their Pokemon. Our heroes immediately notice the Pokemon taking massive damage when they attack from the strong spheres. Yes, it gives them an incredible power boost too. Our heroes dodge both the Glalie and the Garganacl's move, and Liko yells at the two Explorers saying they know that they don't need to use these spheres to battle. She points out the damage that it's doing on their Pokemon and the fact that the Pokemon aren't even looking at their trainer. They say they can beat them without using it, and bring out their Terrassal Orb, but before they can use it, even without hearing their trainer's command, Garganacl attacks Meowscarada and Crocalor, KOing them. Then, as soon as they're on the floor, the Explorers have their Pokemon attack them even more, freezing the two Pokemon in Salt Cure. However, just then, Cap arrives, using Volt Tackle to prevent Glalie from doing any more damage. Then, Cap uses Double Team to dodge Salt Cure from Garganacl, and when he lands, he's wobbly. The crowd is going crazy for all this. Just then though, that's when Uruto arrives. He tells them to battle them next and says that how the Explorers battle is lame. He then lifts the strong sphere in the air before throwing it away. He then has his Sableye use Shadow Sneak and Power Gem on Glalie, and Glalie's too tired to dodge all those attacks. Coral then has Glalie use Explosion, even though it won't do damage to Sableye. But before we can see what happens, Charles closes the door to the events, and we don't see what happens here. But the next time we do see, our heroes are running away outside the testing center while the Explorers watch them from the cameras. Even though Coral wants to go after them to get revenge, Charles points out that our heroes can't really do much because the Explorers have positive public sentiment surrounding them and the organization. It's better off that they just kind of hold off. At night, our heroes are talking to Dot, and she says that the event was a success and the public are actually really curious about their strong sphere. That's not good, clearly, because the spheres still use Lockwium. We also learned that the Explorers have taken over Mount Kumri, so they're still getting the Lockwium from somewhere there. Roy says that no one will believe them if they tell them about Lockwium, but then we hear Uruto. He says he believes them, and he says he's gonna join our heroes on their adventure because clearly, what would happen to them without him? Dot's a little bit skeptical, but Liko says it would be great to have someone with an eye for Pokemon in their team. Uruto blushes hearing this as Roy teases him about Pokemon being the only thing he has an eye on, referring most likely to Liko. Then Terapagos points towards the location, which to me looks like Blackthorn City, as that is the end of the episode. So finally, this episode sets in motion the main crew will have for the rest of the show moving forward. Uruto's still a strange character to me. I'm still starting to get used to him. He's clearly someone with a good heart, but he can just be so annoying and reckless at times. I'm curious to see where the writers take him as a character. We also now have the setup to the Explorers, and what not only Spinel's perception is in the world, which we knew about since the end of the first part of Horizons, but also the other members. There's still a lot of questions regarding the other members of the former Explorers and their goals and motivations, but whatever is happening there, we know that the current Explorers' main goals are to stay affable in the eyes of the public, while something sinister is happening in the background. They're using the Lockroom Sphere to sure boost damage of Pokemon, but for what specific reason? What are they gaining from this? Is it just money? Because the company's already a massive company. It could just be greed. I'm curious as to what they're planning to do though, by having everyone use the strong spheres. That's just a theory I thought of as I was writing this, but maybe Spinel knows the side effects of Lockwium. So he's planning to make an antidote for the side effects of Lockwium. So he's selling both the problem and solution in order to give him more money, power, respect, whatever. Who knows? One thing I'm surprised about is Pokemon all of a sudden is back to having themes about romance in their story. I thought after the XY anime, they kinda abandoned that, seeing the backlash to Serena's arc not being completed in many people's eyes. But here, they clearly have Ult having a thing for Liko. Will it go anywhere? Who knows? But it's a fun way to show that the kids are more grown up now and in their teenage years, which is a good development. As our heroes head to Blackthorn City, I'm curious to see why they are heading there. Episode 96 of Pokemon Horizons titled Clash, the Dragon Speed Gang just dropped, and in this episode, our heroes head to Blackthorn City to investigate the sightings of a black Rayquaza, and on their way, come across a trio of Dragon Biker Gang. What's gonna happen here? Let's talk about it. Last episode ended with Terapagos pointing our heroes towards Blackthorn City, and this episode starts right off where that ended. Our heroes talk to Dot, where she lets them know what city that direction is, and also says that a year ago, there was a rumor of a black Rayquaza there. That lines up with the timeline of when the Voltaclers broke up, and Liko and Roy decide that while it has been a year since the rumored Rayquaza sighting there, Blackthorn is still home to Dragon Tamers and Dragon Clan members like Hassel, so they might find some clue there. So with that, they begin heading there. As they're heading there, it's getting pretty late at night, however, so Roy and Liko want to camp out for the night. Roy and his Lucario look for firewood, while Liko gets other things done around. However, Urto thinks that this is just another one of Roy's tricks to leave him quietly in the night, so he decides to go on his own all by himself. However, when he does, he gets lost and somehow ends right back up where they're at. We get a fun sequence here where Liko has him help him make pancakes while trying to get to know him, and here we learn a bit more about Urto, mainly that he's getting stronger in order to win the approval of someone. We don't get to know who though, and embarrassed about all this, including the fact that he tried to go on his own and got lost, he runs up a tree and just stays there. Even when the pancakes that Liko made are ready to eat, his Sableye comes down to eat it, but he doesn't. It's only after everyone goes to sleep that he comes down. When he finally tries the pancake, he loves it and finishes not only his, but also the extra that Liko had made for the mornings. So when Roy wakes up the next morning, he is upset, and Roy confronts Urto about it. They argue, and Urto says that he's doing them a favor and they should be accommodating to him, while Roy tells him that he should be more mindful of the people with him. They then come across a man resting from his farm work and ask him about the black Rayquaza sightings. While he doesn't know anything about that, he does warn them about the Dragon Biker Gang. They're apparently outcasts from the Dragon Tamer clan, and it's rumored that they extort people for things and fight them for no reasons. They have a hideout near the mountain, and they don't let anyone get near. However, despite knowing all this, our heroes continue on, and once they get closer to the mountain, the rumored bike gang also arrive. They confront our heroes, telling them to leave. However, when they ask about the Rayquaza, one of them says they don't know anything about a black Rayquaza, accidentally letting it be known that they indeed do know. Roy tries to tell them that they're friends with the black Rayquaza, but the biker gangs don't believe them. They ask him if he's part of the Wiggle gang, and our heroes deny it. Eventually, a battle breaks out, and a giant explosion removes the masks of the Dragon Biker gang, who turns out are all girls. When Urto is shocked by this, they confront him, and Urto can't respond. He then tries to take them on 3-on-1, only for Sableye to get wrecked. They then leave, telling our heroes to leave the area. As they leave, Terapagos comes out of Liko's Pokeball and continues walking in the direction that the biker gang went, meaning whatever it's looking for, it's in that direction. As they continue walking, they then come across someone near a nest of eggs. Eventually, one of the egg hatches and a Dratini comes out, and that person takes the Dratini and throws it in a cage. Our heroes are enraged seeing this, and Urto tries to sneak attack it with Shadow Sneak from a Sableye, only for its Arbok to dodge it and grab Sableye. This is the Team Wiggle member that the Dragon Biker Clan was talking about. The Wiggle member then says our heroes are a part of the Dragon Biker Clan since they're not wiggling, and has his Arbok use Thunderfang on Sableye. Roy's Lucario blocks it with Metal Claw, but Snake, and apparently yeah, that's his name, has another Pokemon, a Viper behind our heroes. It uses Sludge Bomb that goes towards the egg, and Meowscarada has to jump in front of it and take the damage in order to protect the eggs. Urto yells at Roy saying he can deal with it all on his own, but Liko responds and sets him straight. She says that the way he's now, thinking he can handle everything by himself, he isn't strong at all. He's just pretending to be strong. And that seems to resonate with Urto, as he then decides to team up with Roy. He Mega Evolves his Sableye, and Roy Mega Evolves his Lucario. Liko has Meowscarada use its invisible thread to wrap up Arbok and Viper, allowing Mega Lucario and Mega Sableye to hit them both and send them packing. Afterwards, they take the Dratini out of the cage and put the eggs back where they are. The Dragon Biker Clan then comes back to thank them for protecting the Dratini. Liko asks them if they know anything, please to tell them. The black Rayquaza saved them a year ago and they haven't seen it since. Terapagos even uses puppy eyes to get the girls to all over it, and they tell Liko and Roy hop on. As the two ride away, Urto tries to hop on another bike but gets thrown off for sounding too rude, so he has to run there. That made me legitimately laugh out loud. They arrive inside of a cave with black Rayquaza. When Terapagos approaches it, it opens its eyes and begins talking to it. The Dragon Biker Clan is shocked because this is the first time it's woken up. They explain to our heroes that this is a place where dragon Pokemon can recharge their batteries. They didn't want people coming here in search of the black Rayquaza, so they spread rumors about themselves. Roy and Liko tells Rayquaza that the Lockroom is still around, and they want to get rid of it to fulfill Lucius's promise, and this time, it can leave it up to them. Urto then arrives, and he says he will obtain the Rayquaza and become the strongest. However, for now, he isn't going to get it to be his friend, because the only Rayquaza worth his time is the strongest one there is, and he tells it to hurry up and get better, because he's going to get way stronger. And with that, they leave the Dragon Tamer clan to take care of the Rayquaza. Our heroes then tell Dot about the events, and she's surprised. She tells them that maybe next they should meet in Paldea because currently Murdoch is working in Katie's shop, and they should meet with Murdoch to figure out what they want to do next. Uruto says he's gonna come with them because he's friends with Liko and Roy, and he runs towards a random direction but doesn't know where he's going. And then Meowscarada kind of breaks the fourth wall by winking at the audience about Uruto and Roy's relationship. The episode ends with Dot trying to find all of her stuff to get ready to go as her Pokemon are causing chaos, but just then Dot gets a phone call from none other than Iono. This is a strangely put together episode, and I just mean in the structure of it. The middle bit just feels so tacked in. It's like the writers didn't want to have our heroes confront the Dragon Riders too much because they're good guys, so they randomly have them just leave in the middle of their battle and have another conflict just so they can use that conflict to prove that our heroes deserve to meet the Black Rayquaza. It's just a weird way of cutting everything up. This is the first real Uruto focus episode, and my thoughts on him haven't changed too much, but I guess it's getting a little bit better. When Uruto says he wants to get the approval of someone, he pulled out a Dusk Ball, and I thought that was maybe the Pokeball of Sableye, but maybe not actually. Does he have another Pokemon that we don't know about that maybe won't listen to him because he isn't strong enough? Because he pulls it out a second time when Liko yells at him, telling him that he's just pretending to be strong. Or is that maybe the Pokeball he wants to use to capture Rayquaza? I'm not particularly sure. At least he has some motivation now. That's good. Him telling Rayquaza that it isn't strong enough for him to capture apparently annoyed a lot of people, but I don't know. I just saw it as Ult wanting Rayquaza to get better so he can prove himself in a fair battle. I didn't take it as anything else. He wants to battle Rayquaza and get its approval to capture it. That's all there is to it. Finally, Dot is getting involved in the story, and she's gonna have Iono's help. I was always curious what they would be doing after finding Rayquaza and talking to it, and wondering how our heroes were going to be able to counter the massive propaganda machine that is the Explorers. And Iono is a perfect way to do this. She's a super famous streamer, so her word is gonna have a lot of power. I am curious to see where the story is headed though, because unlike the first half of Horizons, where there was a specific goal, capture the 6 hero Pokemon, go to Laqua, the story so far hasn't really established an overarching goal. The fact that our heroes are going back to Paldea to talk to Murdoch, maybe to try to reunite the Voltaclers, that might be the new goal. And if that's the case, I am really excited because I would love to see the whole gang come back together. Episode 97 of Pokemon Horizons titled, The Mischievous Stunfisk's Lovely Smile just dropped, and this is a solo Dot episode, where she heads to Lavencia to deal with more Lockrium issues. What happens? Let's talk about it. Remember last episode, Dot was supposed to be heading to Cortando, but now she's at Lavencia. Why? Well, at the end of last episode, Iono called her. So, Dot arrives in Lavencia in Iono's studio. She's dropping by there before heading to Cortando, and that's because Iono has seen her videos calling for strange Pokemon phenomenons happening, and she wanted to show her that something like this is happening in Lavencia. Iono shows Dot the footage, and we get to see what it is. A super fast Stunfisk zipping around town, shocking Pokemon around the city. Dot also notices some pink Lockrium clouds when the Pokemon are being hit. But Stunfisks aren't native to Lavencia, so this has to be a trainer. Dot decides to solo investigate, since Iono has to do her live stream. In the city, as she's investigating, she thinks that the Stunfisk might be hiding in puddles, and hearing this, Tinkatuff goes flying at a puddle with his hammer. Quaxwell stops it, only for Tinkatuff's instinct to be right, as Quaxwell gets shocked in the mud by Stunfisk. And on top of that, there was a Rotom phone on top taking a picture of it. So Dot and her Pokemon chase Stunfisk and the Rotom phone around a corner, and they end up cornering the guy who's causing the mischief. This is a massive Stunfisk fan who loves Stunfisk and is also going around shocking people, taking their picture, and plans on releasing a massive collage to have it go viral and gain Iono's attention, meaning he, just like the Incineroar girl from a couple episodes ago, is a super fan of a streamer. We then learn that he's using Exceed's strong spheres to make his Stunfisk be able to move extremely fast and sneak attack people's Pokemon. Dot sees this as going too far. The trainer, however, recognizes Dot from her battle against Iono the previous year, so he says he's going to beat her and definitely get Iono's attention. The battle we get here is to show two things: how much Dot has grown as a trainer, and the effects of the Lockrium Sphere on Pokemon. Dot immediately shows how much smarter and stronger her Pokemon have become by having her Quaxwell clear out the Mud Slap from Stunfisk by using Aqua Cutter, and then using Aqua Cutter on Stunfisk to get massive damage on it. That forces the trainer to immediately use the Strong Sphere, which changes the entire complexion of Stunfisk, as well as the battle. The Stunfisk isn't smiling anymore, and it looks angry. A major part of why the trainer likes Stunfisk is that he likes his goofy smile, and its moves are are super overpowering, even overpowering Quaxwell's. This leads to Quaxwell being KO'd after a combination of Electro Web and getting shocked. That's when Dot brings out her Tinkatuff. Tinkatuff also gets hit with Electro Web and shocked by Stunfisk, however, it gets back up, and this is where we get to see how much stronger Dot and Tinkatuff have become. Dot has Tinkatuff use Brutal Swing to protect itself from Electro Web, before Tinkatuff learns Metal Claw and breaks through the Electro Web. It's able to use that combo to massively damage Stunfisk, before Dot terrestrializes Tinkatuff into a Steel type. It then proceeds to use a giant Metal Claw, sending back Stunfisk. Despite taking massive damage though, the Stunfisk still wants to fight, and at this point, it stops listening to its trainer and tries to continue to use Thundershock on Tinkatuff. That's where we see the effects of the Lockroom Sphere. It just stops listening to its trainer. Eventually, Tinkatuff is able to block all the electric attacks, and one more massive Metal Claw from Tinkatuff is able to KO Stunfisk. Iono then calls Dot on her phone to congratulate her on the win because she was watching from a camera. She also talks to the Stunfisk fan, who is a streamer as well. He says he's gonna quit trying to prank people, but she tells him not to give up on being a streamer, and instead encourages him to try to get a surprise photo of her. However, she tells him not to cheat, meaning using the Strong Sphere. He says he wasn't gonna use it anyway because Stunfisk doesn't smile when he uses it. I don't know how he just noticed that, because he'd been using it for a while, but regardless, the kid throws the Strong Sphere away and breaks it, and goes on his merry way. The next day, Dot tells Liko and Roy what happened the day before. Liko and Roy respond saying that they can't wait to see her in Cortando, and Dot realizes that she is going to be late. That is until, once again, Iono arrives. She brings out the Squawkabilly taxi over, and that allows Dot to head over to Cortando. As she arrives there, that is the end of the episode. A fun episode to bring Dot into the fray after she's been sidelined so far in this series. It's good to see that she's gotten a lot stronger, although it is weird that her Pokemon are just learning new moves now. It feels like Roy was the only one who really focused on training in the 1 year time skip. The rest just kind of moved on and are barely now returning. I know that's probably not the case, but that's what it feels like, at least with the Pokemon. I am glad to see Tinkatuff get love though. It felt like the first half of Horizons, as a Tinkatank it barely did anything, and then even after it evolved, it was already the end of the series, so it didn't really get involved in much. But now, the first battle we see with Dot is with Tinkatuff. I hope we can continue seeing that, because it has become one of my favorite middle evolution Pokemon designs ever. I also love the sister-brother dynamic it has with Quaxwell. It's pretty wholesome. It's actually similar to the sister-sister relationship that Dot has with Iono, which is also a nice parallel. Overall, this is a fun episode. It's a good way to bring Dot back into the fold as we see how much stronger she's become, and it'll be a welcome sight to see her back with the squad. I am interested to see the dynamic that she's going to share with Urto, as he's the new wild card for the group. I can't wait to see our heroes reunite next episode after a full year away from each other. The gang is back. Episode 98 of Pokemon Horizons titled Cortando. Site of Reunions just dropped, and in this episode, our heroes reunite at Cortando with Dot and Murdoch as Katie decides to battle against Liko. How does it all go down? Let's talk about it. This episode has a fun reunion and a great battle, leading to the next major plan for our heroes. Liko, Roy, and Urto arrive near Soapberry when they see Dot there arrive as well. But before they can say hello to her, Murdoch comes running out, excited, and lifts Dot up. Dot is embarrassed, however. Katie then comes out to say hello to Liko, and Dot tells Murdoch that that's how he should act, which was pretty cute. It's a little bit of conversation before our heroes start eating. There's a funny bit here where Cap chews out Urto and some of the Pokemon because they're fighting over who can get Alcremie's cream. As Urto is scarfing down on desserts, we finally get to see Murdoch's Rockruff. It has evolved, and it's evolved into midday form Lycanroc. However, it's a bit chubby. Turns out, Murdoch has felt like ever since they broke up, his desserts, while good, hasn't had that something to make it perfect. So, while he kept trying and experimenting on food, he kept feeding them to Rockruff. One day, it evolved while in the middle of eating, which is why it's so chubby. Urto's eating so fast that he chokes, and Katie hands him a glass of water, but that freaks him out. He drinks the water and then falls back when Katie approaches him again. He gets picked up by Dot, only to find out that she also is a girl, and gets all flustered when he realizes that she grabbed his hand. We still don't know why this is the case for him. Why is he scared of females? Why does he get flustered so much? This is basically the opposite of the Brock gag, and I'm trying to figure out if there's any specific reason for this, or if it's just a gag just to be a gag. Regardless, that leads to our heroes telling Murdoch everything that they're doing. They're diving headfirst into danger as they're trying to clear the name of the Volt Tacklers after reforming it. They're trying to stop the Strong Spheres and Exceed Company, but Murdoch has doubts because he doesn't know if they're strong enough. So Katie decides that in order for them to show Murdoch they are strong enough, she is gonna battle Liko. Her Teddy Ursa has evolved into an Ursaring, and the Pokemon she picks to battle is not Liko's Meowscarada, but instead Terrapagos. This is the first time that Liko's used Terrapagos in an official battle capacity like this. She's battled with it before, but those were for outside battles. The battle here starts with Terrapagos transforming into its Terraform form, and Liko starts off on the defensive as she uses Protect to block high horsepower and follows it up with Ancient Power. That gets blocked by Arm Hammer from Ursaring, followed by a series of Fury Cutter. The Fury Cutter is enough to break through Protect from Terapagos. Liko realizes that she can't be fighting so defensive against Katie, so she has Terapagos go straight towards Ursaring and use Rapid Spin to block Hammer Arm and do damage to it. Seeing this, Katie decides that she's gonna need to be stronger, so she terrestrializes her Ursaring. She then has Ursaring go for Fury Cutter while Terapagos tries to counter with Ancient Power. However, Ursaring blocks all of the Ancient Power with Fury Cutter before hitting Terapagos. Liko is worried at first, but Terapagos gives her the look to continue, so Liko has Terapagos use its signature move, Terra Starstorm, and that is enough to KO Ursaring. Seeing this, Murdoch is convinced that our heroes are strong enough. However, the kids realize that they need to gather information while on the move if they want to continue this, but they don't know how. That is until Dot says maybe they need some kind of ship, the Brave Olivine. But Murdoch says that the Brave Olivine isn't around anymore. After the Volt Tacklers were broken up, Orla dismantled the ship, but the kids decide they're just going to ask her to build them a new one. They aren't able to get in touch with her through text, but they do know that she's in Galar, so the kids head out and say goodbye. As the kids leave, Murdoch reflects on why he disbanded the Volt Tacklers. He was worried that he was stopping the kids' growth, but now it seems like they're moving forward on their own. And I can't tell here when Katie says that Murdoch can also spread his wings if she's referring him going back to the Volt Tackler or him continuing to perfect his craft. Let me know what you think in the comments. Either way, with that discussion in mind and our heroes moving forward, that is the end of the episode. So I still don't know if this show will actually have the adults return in a full-time capacity to the new Volt Tacklers, or is it just going to be the kids? Currently feels like the latter, but I don't know how something like that would work because would they need a mechanic on board? So I don't know. Either way, this currently feels like a buildup of some sort is happening. Our heroes have now interacted with Molly and Murdoch, with Orla being next. The only other person remaining is Ludlow. Everything that's going on feels like it's leading to something massive, and I can't wait to see how they go about this. Let's talk a bit about Urto. I'm baffled by his characterization, but to me, that's just because he's such a wild card character. In this episode, he says he's going to be the leader of the Volt Tacklers, and that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But I can't tell if that's because of his pride or his ego, or something else in the background. The Rayquaza interaction where he said Rayquaza should get better before battling makes me think there's something we don't know about him, but the show also doesn't tell us, so that's not helping his characterization currently. I will say I am appreciating him more now because he really is a true wild card. The interaction with the older characters without him wouldn't feel as unexpected. We have an idea as to how everyone in the former Volt Tacklers interacted with each other, but him being there is just enough to cause specific actions or reactions to happen that otherwise might not. I've already talked about his weird interaction with girls, but there always seems to be something more to him, which makes him stand out. As our heroes head to Orla for next episode, I'm left wondering if the return of the Brave Olivine is imminent, or if there's going to be a new ship. The poster in Mega Voltage tells me it's the former, but you never know. Currently, the series is in setup mode, so the next major interaction with the villains aren't going to take place anytime soon. Next episode has some interaction with the villains, but those seem like they're underlings, so they're most likely going to be the catalyst to some major development next. Episode 99 of Pokemon Horizons titled With a Flightless Orla just dropped, and in this episode, our heroes go to Orla to ask her to make them a new ship. How will she respond? Let's talk about it. After learning from Murdoch that the Brave Olivine has been dismantled, Liko, Roy, Dot, and Urto have gone to Galar to meet with Orla. Orla's working with Karna now, however, she seems like there's something always on her mind. Karna's stressed about a new batch of items that she's working on that she has to finish by next morning. That's gonna come back later. Our heroes arrive at the factory, and like always, Urto hides when he sees women. Our heroes say hi and catch up with Karna before Orla arrives, and they're excited to see her. She compliments all of them on growing up, and Urto, hiding behind a bush, wants our heroes to cut out the pleasantry and tell Orla why they're here. That's when Liko, Roy, and Dot tell Orla that they have reformed the Volt Tacklers and are planning to try and stop the explorers to get the truth back about the Volt Tacklers. They ask her to make them a new ship that they can use. However, Orla refuses and tells them to ask someone else. Our heroes are devastated, and Orla walks back into the factory. However, just then, Cap notices something and has our heroes follow him. Urto doesn't come with them because he drinks Sinistea, so he's flat on his butt. Through the forest, they follow Cap and come across the Brave Olivine, still standing there. Murdoch had told them they had been dismantled. However, not only is that not true, but also, all the Pokemon that used to live in the Olivine are still there. We get an explanation from Karna, who comes to the forest, as to why. After the Volt Tacklers disbanded, Orla came to her with the Olivine and asked her to hire her, and Karna did so without asking much questions. After a while, Orla then explained to Karna everything that had happened in the past. Orla left the ship and didn't dismantle it so that the Pokemon that lived there could continue living there. And Karna says that the Pokemon here are happier when they're with Orla or with our heroes. And Roy then questions why they couldn't fly try an adventure again, Karna explains that Orla has no intention of ever flying the ship or going on an adventure again. However, Karna does think that it's because Orla has been locking up her true feelings by focusing on her work instead. At night, our heroes decide to stay in the ship while Urto decides to camp out with Sableye. The next morning, Karna talks to Orla. She asks her to reconsider the kid's request, and Orla confirms here that working helps her not think about things. Karna tells her to relax for a bit and get some fresh air, so Orla heads out. As she walks through the forest, she keeps getting memories of Fried asking her to make a ship and the final time she saw him. She arrives where the Brave Olivine is and sees our heroes hanging out there. They apologize to Orla, saying that they went in without her permission, but they notice that everything was well kept up. Orla says that that's just because machines will rust and break down, but the kids ask her if it's because she hopes to fly again in the future. But that gets Orla angry and she shuts them down. She says that Fried asked her to build the ship. Now that he's gone, it's all over. Cap, however, then goes to the ship. The kids tell her that to them, it doesn't feel like Fried's gone. They're doing things that Fried would want them to do, which is to fulfill Lucius's promise and stop the explorers. Orla looks up and sees Cap on the wheel, standing there like Fried was still there, and she is stunned. Orla thinks internally. She never thought of that. Maybe she had just been dwelling in the past, stuck, not moving forward. That's when we hear a giant boom. The explosion near the garage. The kids head there to see what's happening, and Orla seemingly can't. Her vision blurry, and she can't understand why. That's when her Metagross comes out, and after a little bit, she heads back to the garage. What's the issue in the garage? It seems like the explorers are using Karna's factory to create the outer shell for the strong spheres, and Urto's here to stop the businessmen from getting the shells. The kids explain to Orla and Karna what the strong spheres are, their side effects, and Karna believes them. She tells the businessmen that she doesn't want to work with them anymore. That's when two other members of the explorers arrive. The two, one named Indy and the other named Rubella, try to say that the strong spheres are perfectly fine, but when they hear the name Liko, Roy, and Dot, they recognize them as the Rising Voltaclers. So they say that they will eliminate the Voltaclers and bring out a Blaze breed and an Aqua breed Paldean Tauros, the episode ending with them using their strong spheres on their Pokemon. I don't know how much I can convey the emotions in this episode, but this is one of those episodes where just hearing about it doesn't do it justice. I gotta give credit to the animation team. It's not a perfect episode by any stretch at all, but there are a lot of moments here where they get the facial emotion of Orla just right, and from that you can tell how much pain Orla's holding in, or how sad she is, or angry she becomes. The episode is focused on Orla not being able to move on from the tragedy that she witnessed. However, the kids are there to counter her. Liko is very similar to Orla in the first two episodes, but when she decided to take that next step, that's when things changed. And it seems like the episode is really grappling with that exact scenario for Orla. The episode does a good job of making it not seem like Orla's the bad guy for not wanting to help out the kids. It does a good job by showing why this is so hard for her. I think that having the explorers arrive here to show Orla not only what the strong spheres do and what they are, but also to potentially show how strong the kids have gotten over the year will be something that makes her reconsider how she's currently feeling. And that seems to be the main focus of this two-parter. How will Orla come out of this experience? Will she accept the kids' request? That's the main question that's going to be answered. And depending on what she does, it's going to change the series in a big way. Episode 100 of Pokemon Horizons titled We Are the Rising Voltaclers just dropped, and this is a major milestone episode where some major developments take place. So let's just hop in and talk about it. This episode is separated into three distinct parts. The first part is continuing from the last episode where our heroes take on the two explorers that they've come across. They've used strong spheres on their Paldean Tauros, and that's causing the Paldean Tauros to be abnormally strong. The battle itself is a strategic one for our hero. The first time the Tauros attack, our heroes are overpowered. The second time, they do the exact same thing, and Dot notices that. That's when Dot realizes something, and her theory gets solidified even more when Uruto's Sableye confuses the Aqua Breed Tauros and it charges at the Blaze Breed Tauros, and despite its trainer telling the Blaze Breed Tauros to dodge, it doesn't listen and takes a massive super effective hit. Dot realizes that with Locrium, while the Pokemon do get stronger, they also lose the ability to listen to commands from their trainers. They mostly fight on instinct on what would be the most advantageous for them. So they come up with an idea where they let Tauros charge and get close to Meowscarada and Crocolore before Meowscarada and Crocolore run on opposite directions at each other, causing the Paldean Tauros to chase them and hit each other. That opens up room for everyone to attack simultaneously, and that causes the two Pokemon to get KO'd. With the two explorers defeated, Liko and Roy tell the two that they can't beat them with the strong spheres because they have no bond with their Pokemon. The two explorers and the businessmen both leave without getting the strong sphere shells they came for, saying they will report this. This battle seemingly inspires Orla. Seeing the power of the strong spheres, our hero's battles against the Explorer reignites her sense of purpose. She realizes that she'd been standing still since they lost Freed, and that's something that he would never do. She realized that she's got stuff left to finish, and she wants to help out as a member of the Voltacklers. She wants to fly together on the Brave Olivine once again, and everyone gets excited. The second part of this episode is just a fun montage. Orla says it'll take her a few days to fix up the ship to peak form, so while she gets working on that, everyone else works on cleaning up the ship and making it flyable again. The montage shows things like cleaning, to technical work, to getting food ready for everyone on board, all in order to get the ship ready to go again. After 3 days and night, the ship is ready, and as they're ready to go, we get another surprise. It's not just Orla who's going to be joining them. Molly, Murdoch, and Ludlow are back too. Seeing our heroes reignited everyone's sense of adventure. For Murdoch, as I'd guessed 2 episodes ago, Katie knew that Murdoch's heart was in exploration, so when he found out that Orla was working on the ship again, Murdoch tells Katie that he wants to return to flying, and it's not that big of a surprise for her. For Molly, she shows her resolve to continue to heal Pokemon out there in the world to her mom, and her mom acknowledges that Molly has never been one to sit still and settle down, so allows her to go. Roy was hoping Ludlow was back, and he turns around to see he is. He says that this used to be his ship, remember, and he felt like the waves were just calling him, so he just had an intuition that they were back. It's good to see him back, meaning now everyone except Freed is back together. Urto also gives our heroes the honor of having him join their team, and he says he will be the captain, before learning that Cap is the captain of the ship. Him being on board seems to be fine with everyone. The third is the insane part. As everyone gets on their old post and gets ready to fly again, Dawes is about to reset up the Voltacklers app when she gets a notification. It's an encrypted voicemail. When she finally decrypts it and plays it, they're all shocked to hear Freed's voice. They eventually calm down enough to listen to it, and Freed tells everyone that he's sorry for not keeping up with them. He's been hiding out because he's being tracked by the Explorers, and he's trying to make sure they don't know his movements. He's been trying to figure out the mysteries of Locrium, and he tells everyone to take care of themselves until he gets back. This is an emotional moment, and for episode 100, this is a giant bombshell, and you can tell how much it affected Orla the most, as she's the one that gets visibly emotional about it. However, that voice also inspires them, and they're ready to go even more now, and even throw a party to celebrate. Before they head out, Orla steps out to thank Karna for everything. Karna knew that this time would be coming, and Orla thanks her by giving her a Pokeball she made. Karna doesn't mind it not being perfect because it has Orla's passion and particularities to it, and that's that. However, as the two share a laugh, it randomly zooms into the tree, and that felt way too intentional to me, so keep an eye out on that. As the ship is back in the air, we get to hear the very first opening of Pokemon Horizons. We see that the original Voltackler flag is still sailing on the ship, and Roy wants to do the Voltackler cheer, so it's left up to Liko to lead, showing how much she has grown from being the first person to witness it in the series to now leading the Voltackler's cheer. However, it's not just all happy endings. We see the 2 explorers that our heroes beat heading back to wherever Spinel's located. They apologize for not defeating our heroes, however, they also tell Spinel that our heroes have reassembled again and have started flying again. That, by the way, is what I think the random zoom was showing, because if the 2 explorers that they beat left when they said they did, they wouldn't have known that our heroes are flying again. They were probably spying. Spinel tells the 2 to keep being dedicated to the cause of the explorers before seemingly having more sinister plans in mind to swat down our heroes once again, and that is where we end this episode. What an unbelievable episode. We got a little bit of battle, but more fantastic storytelling. As many have talked about, I don't know how I feel about showing that Frida's alive again this soon. It is a massive reveal, no doubt. Definitely fitting for episode 100, but would it have been better saved for a later moment? Personally, I'm torn. On one hand, I understand it. Just because we know he's alive doesn't mean we know when he's going to return. And I think most of us probably had an inkling that he hadn't really died. This is Pokemon. They're not going to randomly kill one of their more popular characters in this new show. On the other hand, maybe if this happened later down the line, it would have been a more insane surprise, but that could also come with the feeling he came out of nowhere. So I think setting him up to be alive here is probably the correct decision. However, is the decision even real? I think having someone like Spinel hack our heroes in the past does a good job of not making you fully confident that it's actually Freed. Could it be a hacked thing that Spinel has set up to lure our heroes into another trap? He is a mastermind after all, so even though it's revealed here, it could also not be true, and that's what I like about this reveal. For episode 100, I think they did a great job of bridging the old and the new. The old, the ship is back, but the new, it's being run differently. Specifically, Roy is the main pilot now. Roy has basically completely taken over the role of Freed. That was hinted at in episode 1 and even last episode when Orla saw Freed in Roy, but this basically confirms it. While the whole gang does return, it's also with the addition of someone new. We even get to hear the first opening of Horizons play as our heroes start their adventure once again. It's a nostalgic throwback, yet allows the story to move forward. Also, episode 100 of Horizons solidified something to me. The idea that Liko, not Roy, is going to be the main character of this series. It makes sense narratively. It's hard to make the battle of the story the emotional core of the story compared to the character that actually tries to understand people's feelings feelings to push the story forward. Battling in Pokemon is a means to an end. It's something that allows to have the final clash to have meaning, but that meaning can't be developed unless there's emotional weight behind the conflict, and without Liko there to understand people, Pokemon, and push the narrative in certain directions, Roy's actions, while cool, wouldn't mean much. Even if at some point they did have the idea to make Roy the main characters, just like Toriyama with Gohan, I think they probably just realized it's really hard to switch main characters in the middle of your series. It just doesn't emotionally feel the same to longtime viewers. Now that the heroes have reassembled, I wonder where the story is going to go and how it's going to proceed. What's going to be their strategy to go after the explorers? How are they going to track down more Lockreum stuff? And how are they eventually going to reunite with Freed? All of these questions and more are setting up for the future. Episode 101 of Pokemon Horizons titled Fight! Terastallization vs. Mega Evolution just dropped, and in this episode, our heroes head back to Narahana Academy where we see a battle between Roy and Nemona. How will it go? Let's talk about it. This is a new beginning for the Rising Voltaclers. The episode begins with Murdoch officially handing over the controls of the Brave Olivine to Roy. He has now fully taken over the role of Freed. He's told by Murdoch that they're going where the kids want to go. So, the first place that our heroes decide to go, in order to investigate and get help in their mission to stop Exceed and Lockreum, is Narana Academy. The teacher saw them defend the school from the explorers, and Penny and the others will believe them. It's also a great place to try and find out about Lockreum, so after getting the blessing from Cap, our heroes head over there. They make it clear in this conversation that this isn't just about beating Exceed. They want to change Exceed's mind about Lockreum. They want to try to tell them about the dangers of the Strong Sphere, and change their hearts to get them to stop. Liko even says this isn't something that they can stop with battling when Urto gets excited about battling Exceed. So, like I said in the last review, while Roy can be as strong as he is, and we'll see that this episode, the core of the story is still about empathy, for which Liko is the main focus character of. On their way there, Liko and the others try to get a room ready for Urto, but he decides he doesn't want to be inside the boat because of his seasickness. Instead, he'll stay on the room leading up to the battle deck outside as it has access to the sky. Our heroes get to Narana Academy and begin talking to Clavel and Gita. Luckily for them, while Clavel and Gita have heard the rumors about the Voltaclers, they do have faith in our heroes. Dot then begins explaining everything to them. They explain to them Lockreum, how it's causing Pokemon in various regions to behave differently, and how Exceed have taken over Mount Kumri to use Lockreum to develop strong spheres. They talk about how the spheres, while making the Pokemon more powerful, also have side effects like tiring the Pokemon out and causing Pokemon not to listen to trainers. However, before Narana Academy can step in and help them, Clavel and Gita require more data and video proof. On top of that, they want them to investigate the relationship between Lockreum and Pokemon, and in order to do so, they introduce our heroes to Jacques, the biology teacher. We used to learn that he used to be a researcher and worked even with Clavel. Once Dot explains everything to him, he says he'll also look into Lockreum to help out our heroes. While that's going on, Urto's lost and comes across food, gets chased around the school for not being a student, and gets caught by Dendra's Hariyama. So after our heroes are done talking to Jacques, they come to the battlefield and find him. They also reunite here with Nemona. She sees that our heroes have gotten stronger and challenges Roy to a battle, and Roy accepts. This is the most controversial thing in this episode by far, so let's talk about it. It's a 2-on-2 battle with Nemona and Roy. Nemona, a champion of the Paldea League, is using her Ace, Palmont, and her Bombi. Meanwhile, Roy's using his Crocalor and Shiny Lucario. The battle begins, and they're evenly meshed. Palmont and Lucario are going at it with their close combat and Mach Punches, but the difference early on is that Nemona's Rabombi is providing great support, using Light Screen to reduce damage and Pollen Puff to heal Palmont, and Roy has to figure out a way around it. In the middle of the battle, Dot gets a call from Penny asking her to come to her dorm, and when Dot arrives there, Penny shows her a map of Paldea where she has a lot of areas mapped out with Lockreum signs that Dot can use in her videos and investigation. When they get back to the field, Roy has something figured out. After getting hit by Focus Punch the first time, he has his Pokemon disrupted the second time, breaking through sticky webs, and also manages to steal Pollen Puff from Rabombi. After that, he Mega Evolves his Lucario, and seeing this, Nemona terastallizes her Palmont, and the two begin going at it. It ends with the two Pokemon going at it, with Metal Claw from Lucario and Focus Punch from Palmont. However, Lucario's hands are longer and reach Palmont before Palmont can land the Focus Punch, KOing Palmont, which means the winner is Roy. In the aftermath, everyone congratulates Roy, and even Dot is fired up after seeing this battle. So seeing this, Penny challenges Dot to a battle of her own, shocking even Nemona. I can't wait to see the next episode. Finally, we get to see Zer and Konya continue to search for Amethio and not find him in the ocean. Konya is hoping that Zygarde can help them, setting up their returns, and that's the end of this episode. But wow, What an absolutely shocking result for Nemona versus Roy. And unlike Gita, who was fighting 3v1, this was a fair 2v2 battle that Roy completely and utterly outclassed Nemona in. To me, it tells me one thing. Narratively, the writers wanted to pay off the promise that Nemona and Roy had made about battling again a long time ago and wrap up their rivalry. This time, they didn't set any more follow-ups or rematches, so this feels like a definitive end. I don't know why, I guess that means Nemona's not going to be around in the future much, but for the audience watching, this result is absolutely shocking. The main reason is something I've talked about before. We didn't get to see how or why Roy has become this strong. We can make assumptions about how losing Freed and the breakup of the Volt Tacklers motivated Roy to become as powerful as possible so he can take down Exceed. By the way, I keep saying Exceed because Spinel is the president of Exceed, but I just mean the Explorers. Even though that feels a little bit contradictory to what our heroes were saying at the beginning of this episode of how they wanted to stop Exceed by changing their minds. But still, the issue here is that we never get to see what type of training he did to become stronger than a league champion in 1 year. The reactions online are because the victory feels unearned, and specifically for longtime fans who've been watching the anime since the Ash arc, it feels like an absolutely insane power boost to a character that we hardly know. You can argue that game Nemona and anime Nemona are different, but while that could be convincing in a vacuum, the anime has followed up on a lot of resolutions from the game. Things like Area Zero already being investigated, or Penny already being in charge of the school's security system, so they feel like one single continuity, even if that's not meant to be the case. It feels like such a power spike in a series where progress is slow and linear, and that's why the reaction to this battle is what it is. And unlike the Gita one where I felt like people overreacted, I can kinda understand why people are upset here. Besides that, I like that our heroes are now leading the Rising Volt Tacklers. This tells me that Freed actually won't be back for a long time, even though he was shown to be alive, because this development allows our heroes to grow. It will be interesting to see their struggles and challenges leading, similar to the episodes we saw with Freed when he was leading it. And next episode is Penny vs. Dot, which is gonna be exciting. I'm just curious as to why they're doing these major battles now. What are they establishing here besides just cool battles for fans? I'll be looking forward to seeing if I can figure that out. It also looks like the Paldea characters won't be fully gone, maybe even after Legends ZA comes out, because it looks like they're going to be involved in the main plot. So overall, everything looks exciting and is setting up well for the future. Episode 102 of Pokemon Horizons, titled The Night Encountered in the Ruins, just dropped, and we got a brand new capture for Liko in this episode, as well as Dot taking on Penny. How will it all go? Let's talk about it. This episode really has two major things happen, but both of them are pretty fun. The first part of the episode is a continuation from the end of last episode, as Dot and Penny battle. It's a 2-on-2, Dot using her Quaxwell and Tinkaton, while Penny uses her Sylveon and Flareon. The winner is the first one to knock out one of the other's Pokemon. Dot starts off strong by deflecting Moonblast from Sylveon with her Tinkaton, and Quaxwell hits Sylveon with Liquidation, but this is when things fall apart for Dot. Cute Charm from Sylveon activates on Quaxwell, preventing it from attacking and helping out Tinkaton when it's being attacked by the Evolutions because it's immobilized by love. Tinkaton has to hit it over the head with his hammer to snap it out of it. Dot then uses her Terror Orb to Terrasilize Quaxwell, causing Penny to Terrasilize her Sylveon. Quaxwell takes a Moonblast from Sylveon to allow Tinkaton to use Slam, and that allows Quaxwell to come back and hit a Liquidation on Sylveon. However, that isn't enough, and Swift from Flareon KOs Quaxwell, which means the winner is Penny. After our heroes leave, with Urto not being able to battle due to the school being done for the day, our heroes look at the data that Penny provided them, and it shows the Lockroom signs near them. Since there's one nearby, near the ruins they went with Miss Rayford back in the days, they decide they'll go check it out, along with a picnic. The next day, they begin searching for this Lockroom sign. Liko comes across someone looking for their school villain. After searching a bit more, they take a break and enjoy a picnic. Afterwards, Dot talks about the fact that since they'll have to go to many different places to gather info and data on Lockrium and the Sphere, they'll have to find a way to make more money, something that they didn't have to worry about prior with Freed. Sableye then comes across an ancient coin, and they talk about the fact that last time, Roy got controlled by Gimmighoul to force him to collect coins for his chest, but he says this time, he's not gonna fall for it. And then he, along with everyone else, except Liko, fall for it, and begins searching for the coins. Meanwhile, Liko is looking for the Lockroom signs when her Terapagos sees a rune that it's been to prior and goes in it. Liko then turns around to see Terapagos is missing. And inside the rune where Terapagos goes is Charcadet. It's the same Charcadet from episode 57 when they went with Rayford, so Terapagos and it recognize each other. It seemingly is protecting a group of Pokemon that are scared, because there seems to be some Pokemon missing from that group. That's when outside, Liko comes across signs of Lockrium. She tries to call the others on their phone to get their attention, but all of them are too busy gathering coins for Gimmighoul, so they ignore it. Hatchram senses danger, so Liko and her Pokemon go towards it. It's a Scovillain with Lockwium all over it, attacking some smaller Pokemon. Liko thinks this might be the Scovillain of the trainer who was missing hers, so Liko gets her Meowscarada to attack it to get its attention away from the others, while having Hatchram heal the smaller Pokemon. Meowscarada continues battling it in order to stop it, but it is a fire type, so Meowscarada can only hold on for so long. However, that's when Charcadet and Terapagos once again arrive to stop Scovillain. Scovillain attacks Charcadet, and it takes on its fire attacks, because its ability is Flash Fire, which allows it to not get hit by fire moves, and instead, it boosts its power and fires back with a fire attack of its own. Liko uses this opportunity to have Terapagos then absorb the Lockwium from the Scovillain to stop its rampage, and that ends it. Liko then helps return the Scovillain to the trainer and learns something new. The trainer had used the Lockwium Sphere on it a bunch, and the Lockwium Sphere had ran out on it recently. That's when the Scovillain ran away. She then talks to Liko about the many different variants of Scovillain, something anime exclusive, but that makes sense for the world because there's a bunch of different type of peppers in the world, before Liko slowly backs off. Liko then arrives back at the group of Pokemon with the Charcadet and thanks it for helping her. She's about to leave when Terapagos asks Charcadet to join them, and so, with the Pokemon behind giving their approval, Charcadet decides it's going to join Liko's team, and now it gets to ride on Terapagos' back anytime. When Liko heads back to where the others are, she has to tell them that they're collecting coins for Gimmighoul before they snap out of it and realize that they just got had. Back in the ship, they discuss what Liko fought, and Liko explains to them how the Pokemon left the trainer after repeated use of the Strong Sphere. Dot and the others hypothesize that maybe repeated use of the Strong Sphere on Pokemon could sever the bond between Pokemon and trainer. That would also explain why the tourists that the explorers used to battle against them stopped listening to them. That's when Dot gets a video message on her phone. It's from Iono. Iona is asking her if she wants to do a fan meetup as Nidothing, and despite being reluctant to do so, Dot knows it's a good way to make money, so she begrudgingly accepts while Liko is beyond happy. And that is the end of this episode. The battle between Dot and Penny in the first part of the episode felt disappointing to me. It was kind of a joke battle in the beginning, which I usually have no problem with, but this one just ends so abruptly without much build-up at all that it's so jarring. Maybe that's on purpose because Nemona does say that she helps train the tops of the league, but I was just hoping for more when the battle was teased last episode. I hope we get a rematch in the future of a better, more full battle. I like the use of the picnic and the same location from the past to show how much our characters have grown. Dot even talks about the fact that when they did a picnic prior, she didn't want to leave the ship, but Liko leaving her stuff to make her sandwich on her own allowed her to enjoy it with Lidlo, and she appreciated that. It also allowed them to do something that many fans were asking for, and that is to allow Liko to capture a Charcadet. It just fits Liko as a trainer. I don't know if that was something they ever planned from the start, or realized that they missed a golden opportunity when they came across the Charcadet the first time. But allowing Liko to get Charcadet just allows her to get an Armarouge, which would be a perfect foil to Ametheo Ceruledge, her primary rival in this series. And since he's going to be important in the future of this series, it's a good setup here. With Gimmighoul also jumping on board the Brave Olivine, many are speculating, is that going to go to someone else? Maybe potentially Roy? And if he does, Roy's team is so unbelievably strong, that would make it even more busted, especially if he gets a Goldango. But who knows, maybe that's what they need in order to beat someone like Spinel. With the next episode having Nidothing and Iono do a meetup, there's going to be opportunity for intel and shenanigans. And I have a feeling something big will be talked about next episode. Episode 103 of Pokemon Horizons titled Stay Ablaze, My Love for Nidothing just dropped, and in this episode, Dot as Nidothing has a collab with Iono to help raise funds for the Rising Voltaclers, and an unexpected reunion occurs. What happens? Let's talk about it. This is a fun episode leading to something major as I predicted. This is all about Nidothing and Iono collabing on an IRL event in order for Dot to gain more subs, views, and ultimately funds for the Rising Voltaclers. Liko is excited to go to this event, and Alt isn't, and because of that, he isn't really even involved in this episode. However, someone important is involved in this episode, and that is Zerk and Onia. They have been searching for Ametheo desperately, but haven't been able to find him. They're on a beach, staying there, trying to figure out their next move, when Onia says that she wants to once again check the previous docks that they might have missed. Zerk is hesitant to do so, and the reason why, as Onia comes to find out, is because Nidothing is going to be at where they're at. We get some fun moments here, like Liko insisting that she got a ticket by standing in line like a true fan, or us seeing that Grusha is even a bigger fan of Iono as he got there super early. Zerk also gets a ticket, which is the Pokedex number of Rhydon, and he is super happy, but that turns into to despair when his ticket gets blown away by the wind into Lavencia's drainage system. He's depressed and doesn't even react when the Voltacklers arrived. Remembering that he and Onia helped them during their battle at Laqua, Dot offers him her ticket, which I'm not sure why she would need a ticket, but he turns it down, saying if he can't have his own ticket, then it's not worth going to. And that's when Liko steps in and agrees, but she also says that they will help him look for his ticket. Dot tells Iona that she's going to be a little bit late for rehearsals and figures out where the drainage system of Lavencia leads to. There, our heroes help search for the ticket, but can't find it. Zerk is about to give up and tell our heroes to go to the event because it wouldn't be fair for him to hold them up, when Liko tells him he shouldn't give up because he really wanted to meet Nidothing. She inspires him, and that's when Crocolore gets sent flying by a Wug Trio, one of which has a ticket stuck on it. There's a battle here, and eventually, despite being mollywopped by a Wug Trio for a majority of the battle, Rhydon manages to secure Zerk's ticket. The event goes on as planned. Dot even brings out Zerk and Rhydon to dance on stage. Afterwards, both Liko and Zerk are excited to shake her hand. Even Onia gets to meet one of her heroes in Grusha. After the event, Liko and Roy go backstage to meet Dot, and Zerk wants to thank our heroes for helping him get his ticket, so he follows them back there, only to see the truth, that Dot is Nidothing. I'm actually surprised they did that. Having one of the villains know who one of the most popular main characters is seems like a crazy move. Maybe they're gonna use that for something in the future. And of course, he's devastated by this. But when Nidothing is in her costume and in full character mode, he gets super excited again. So all seems well. The most important part of the episode here occurs at the end. Zerk and Onia decide something at the same time. They go up to Liko to ask her for some time alone. Once alone, they tell her that Amethio is missing and that they want her help to find him. And that is the end of the episode. This is just a fun episode that transitions into the next major plot point. Zerk and Onia get more personality here, something that they desperately needed since they're going to be important moving forward. Zerk already had a bit of a character due to him being a Nidothing fan. However, I think this episode did wonders for Onia, who comes across as a genuine person. She's dedicated to finding Amethio, and when Zerk wants to take part in this event, gets his ticket, and he's super happy, she's genuinely happy for him. It's a great personality for someone who prior all we knew was that she's a bit of a cat lady. I am fascinated to see the return of Amethio, mainly because I think now they're finally setting up the rivalry between Liko and Amethio. Yes, that was already partially there. Early in the series, he was an antagonist to her, but most of his major battles were against Fried, not Liko. However, as the series kept going, he became more and more of a rival type character since Spinel had fully taken over the antagonist role. And then in the Laqua battle, when he decides to team up with our heroes, that's when he became an ally, as both him and the Voltacklers' interests aligned. Now, their interests are probably aligned once again, as he's in the outs with the Explorers. So, if he wants to get his revenge, him and the Voltacklers are gonna have to work together. This can allow Amethio to engage with our heroes more often, get involved with the series more often, since now he isn't just part of the bad guy group, but now he can be his own person. I'm really looking forward to that. Not only that, this can be a great sense of motivation for Liko's newest captor, Charcadet. It can have Survey be similar to what Incineroar was for Ash's Lit, and if they're able to pull off that dynamic like they did in Sun and Moon, that would be incredible for its growth as a character. Overall, this was just a wholesome episode. It showed off great characters, while at the end, focusing on the important stuff for the future. Episode 104 of Pokemon Horizons titled Charcadet's Wish just dropped, and in this episode, Liko joins Zerk and Onia to find the missing Amethio. Will they be able to find him? Let's talk about it. This is an episode about two things, reunions and motivations. Liko goes to Amethio's mansion, and there she's told about the current state of the Explorers ever since Spinel took over. Spinel has basically made Exceed and the Explorers puppets of whatever he wants to do. Amethio was being chased by the Explorers everywhere, so he went into hiding. And as we know, Hamber asked Zerk and Onia to find him. So now, they're asking Liko because despite being enemies at one point, Amethio approved of Liko. Liko doesn't know where he might be at first, but notices his childhood pictures with his Charcadet as well as his family, including the lady with the giant portrait in the front, who was indeed his mother. She passed away due to an accident when he was younger. Liko notices that picture of young Amethio with his Charcadet and his mom in the beach and puts two and two together. They call Director Crave to ask him where the location is, and here we learn that Crave, after Spinel took over, was downgraded from a director of the company to an inspection officer. He's also worried about the strong sphere. He sends the information to Zerk and Onia, and we learn that this beach is located in an island off the coast of Lavencia. That's where he met his Charcadet, so they decide to head there. While on their way there, Liko asks Zerk and Onia about how they met Amethio. Here we learn that Hamber put them together as a team. At first, they thought Amethio would just be some kid they would have to babysit, but then they learned that he's a poised, disciplined, and tough person, and they eventually became friends. We go to the island where Amethio is located and learn that he's been here for a full year after the events of Mount Paracarp. He came to this island to get away from the Explorers, and he reminisces and thinks about the fact that he couldn't save his grandfather, and he can't do what his grandfather told him, which was to follow the path of his own beliefs, because he doesn't know his own beliefs. He feels like everyone he knows have left him. He thinks about his mother telling his shark cadet to get big and strong to protect Amethio, and that's who's left for him. However, just then, he hears a boat. At first, he thinks it might be the explorers, but then he notices it's Liko, Zerk, and Onya. Around the campfire, they let him know about everything. The fact that Spinel has taken over XSEED by ousting his father, the fact that the Voltaclers are villains to the world now, the fact that Locrium still exists and Spinel's using XSEED to spread it around the world. There are a lot of issues going on right now, and Zerk and Onya want Amethio to come back and fight to take it all back over, both XSEED and the Explorers. However, Amethio says that since he lost the Explorers and his grandfather, he's powerless. That's when Liko speaks up. She asks him if he's just going to give up after one stumbling block. The same thing he told her when they were stuck in a cave in Glaciato Mountain. Liko's Char Cadet then challenges Ceruledge to a battle, and despite being hesitant to do so, Amethio eventually agrees. Liko's obviously at a massive disadvantage as Char Cadet is way weaker than Ceruledge, but this battle isn't about that. After getting hit by Phantom Force, Amethio thinks that the battle is over, but Char Cadet doesn't give up and gets back up. It then dodges a Psycho Cut from Ceruledge and gets a close range hit in with Ember. Despite that not doing much damage, however, that seems to have lit a fire under Ceruledge. Ceruledge then attacks, and that's it for the end of the battle. However, the battle really wasn't about wins and losses. What Amethio picks up from that battle is to not give up, and that seems to inspire him. He tells Zerk and Onya that he can't go back with them because they're still technically the Explorers, but they can do stuff from the inside that he can't do. He's instead going to try and figure out what he can do, and that's when Zerk hands him the Zygarde cube that Hamburg gave him, meaning now he can go look for the other Zygarde cells. Afterwards, Zerk and Onya let Hamburg know, and Hamburg's super happy to hear. However, we also see that he's being watched by Chals. The episode ends on a positive light. Liko's Char Cadet has grown a lot from battle according to Molly, and since the ship is going to take longer to do maintenance for, our heroes decide they want to go out and have fun. Finally, the episode ends with Amethio flying in his Corviknight looking for Zygarde cells. This is a great episode to help build up Amethio. The episode doesn't make this connection, which surprised me, but Amethio basically went through the same thing that Orla went through. After the death of someone close to them, they both were lost about what they wanted to do next. Orla went back to engineering, and Amethio went back to the past he used to know before he was an explorer. Both have to be convinced through the actions of others that they can do something and are inspired to do so. The connections there feel intentional and are most likely there to connect the former villains to our current heroes, and how despite their differences in the past, both of them now collectively have experienced the same thing that changed them, and now both of them, despite having different goals, have the same common enemy. I'm interested to see where this plan of Amethio is going. Internally, what specifically can Hamburg, Zerk, and Onya do? They're being watched, so I don't know what they can do. They have to make all their moves in secrecy. Externally, what's Amethio gonna do? He has to figure out not only a way to stop the new explorers, but also take back over XSEED and stop it from creating more Locrium. I'll be interested to see if we're going to see his plans come together, or if he's just going to show up one day with a Zygarde. Time will tell, I guess. The rest of the episode is mainly backstory and showing us where the rivalry between Liko and Amethio stands. For now, he's definitely stronger than her, but despite that, Liko's still pushing Amethio as a character in certain directions, and I don't know if we'll ever get a full-on battle between them since they're no longer enemies, but I will be watching the growth of Char Cadet, which was probably tied to Ceruledge, and see where that's gonna go. Overall, this was a great episode that brings out another character into the fray in the battle against Spinel. I can't wait to see the first clash between these two sides. Episode 105 of Pokemon Horizons titled Goldango Goes Surfing After the Storm Just Dropped, and in this episode, Dot catches Gimmighoul. How? Let's talk about it. This episode was split into two halves, the storm half and the sunny half. The episode begins in a giant storm as the brave Olivine's in the water. Ludlow stands up as he's in the dock in the rain and decides it's time to transform into Mighty G. Why? Turns out, he'd been keeping track of Amethio and saw that he needed help. So, after getting Amethio from the air to come with him in his Sharpedo to a cave, he sees that Amethio hasn't eaten well. So he gives him rice, veggies, and some curry powder. He wants to leave as he's losing his transformation, but he sees that Amethio has no clue what to do. So, he teaches him how to clean rice, dry his clothes, cut vegetable, and make himself some curry. He even stays behind to eat with him, as eating together is better than eating alone. And once the rain lets up, he leaves, as Amethio thanks him. This part of the episode really focuses on one thing. While there's a lot of jokes and gags here happening throughout, the one constant is Amethio's inability to do anything. He doesn't know how to make food, he doesn't know how to dry clothes, he doesn't know what it means to be in a group, he doesn't really understand jokes or puns. His entire life he's been with a serious organization, the Explorers, and Hamburg took care of everything for him he ever needed. So now that he's on his own, he's had to learn what life is from scratch. It also kind of shows the effects behind the idea that Amethyst didn't really have parents or parental figures growing up. His mom died early and his dad was too focused on his work, and how that can shape you as a person. It's an interesting development for a character. Once the sun comes up, our heroes head to the beach. It's not a boat, it's not a cruise, it's a Goldango. Due to the storms the previous night, the conditions are great for surfing, so everyone wants to surf, and particularly surf with this Goldango, who seems to be like a local celebrity. Dot wants to head back to her room to make shorts off her streams with Iono, but every time she wants to go in, she gets roped back out by Gimmighoul, who keeps making her collect coins. Eventually, she notices Quaxwell pining to be in the water, so despite not swimming being one of her tenets, she decides to get in the water to surf. As she starts to surf, Gimmighoul jumps in with her in her surfboard, and she sees that it wants to surf like Goldango. She even has to save Gimmighoul the first time, and then, eventually, she surfs with it. She struggles at first, but with the help of her Quaxwell, she's able to surf in the wave, and while doing so, she notices Goldango surfing with ease, and how Gimmighoul is looking up to it. So, afterwards, at the end of the day, as everyone leaves, including the Goldango, Dot walks up to Gimmighoul. Dot says that the same way she looks up to Iono, she can see that Gimmighoul looks up to Goldango and wants to evolve into a Goldango. So, her and her Pokemon will help look for coins so that one day it can evolve. That way, it doesn't have to control them to find coins. And with that, she captures it. The episode ends with Dot, despite telling Molly that she's made friends with Gimmighoul and it doesn't need to control them anymore, being controlled by Gimmighoul anyway. The back half of this episode seems to be controversial. Not for any major reasons, it's just that people wanted Roy, not Dot, to get Gimmighoul. And personally, I disagree. I'm glad that it was Dot and not Roy who got a Pokemon who has the potential to be insane. Roy already has an incredible team. He doesn't need another busted Pokemon in his squad. Dot, on the other hand, was the only main character who had 2, not 3 Pokemon. And this finally puts her on the same level as the others. And when it does evolve eventually, Goldango is one of the best Pokemon in Generation 9 in my opinion. So it'll be awesome to see how she maneuvers it. An overall fun episode that showed us 2 sides of the same day. We got to learn a bit more about Amethyst, we got to learn a bit more about Dot and how she's developed, and we get to see a Pokemon capture. All in all, a pretty fun episode. Episode 106 of Pokemon Horizons titled Mega Awesome! The Off-Limits Dusk Ball just dropped, and in this episode, we finally learn more about Urto's Dusk Ball. What's in it? Let's talk about it. Roy and Urto have an argument about the fact that the place he sleeps in, which is also the observation deck of the Brave Olivine, has stuff everywhere, including rocks. Urto insists it isn't just junk, but Roy threatens to kick him out of the ship if he doesn't clean up. So, Urto decides to run away and leave. Molly sees that he is leaving, but doesn't stop it from happening. She knows it's just kids being kids, and he'll probably end up returning. We then meet a kid named Ryu, and he has a Graphii. He uses that Graphii to make paintings and sell them in the streets. However, his Graphii only paints one color. We learn that that's because it has a super picky diet. It only eats Nanab berries. He sees some kids talking about how a strong sphere can make a Pokemon super powerful. However, he doesn't have the money to buy it. Urto's hungry and comes across some Nanab berries when Ryu comes up to him and tells him not to steal it. He even had the place marked with his Graphii because he was waiting on it to grow. But the owner of the house comes out and sees the graffiti in the wall and chases him away. As Ryu is about to leave, he sees that his Graphii made friends with Urto's Sableye and even drew it on its canvas. Seeing this, he tells Urto that they have to become friends. Turns out that's because Ryu's Graphii is super picky and won't even draw things and eat many different things. Like I said, all it eats is Nanab berries, which is why it can only draw in one color currently. So when Graphii decided to draw Sableye, it was a turning point. Ryu asked Urto's Sableye to help it expand its palate, and eventually it does, helping it eat an orange berry that it seems to enjoy. And this now allows it to paint in a different color, and Ryu is incredibly happy. Later in the evening, as Urto and Ryu are talking, Urto talks about how for him, he's collected things that mean a lot to him in his adventure. When Ryu asks if he has friends, he remembers Roy and Liko, but says he doesn't. Urto then tells him about his Dusk Ball when asked if he has another Pokemon, and we learn that Urto actually doesn't know what Pokemon is in this Dusk Ball, just that a Pokemon that can change the world. But whatever he is, he's trying to earn its respect for it to come out, and that intrigue fascinates Ryu. Back in the ship, Roy realized that he said something terrible to Urto and didn't understand that to Urto, these rocks aren't junk, they mean something to him. So he goes out to try and find him to get him back and apologize to him. The next morning when Urto wakes up, his Dusk Ball is missing, and in his bag, he sees paint, showing that it was Ryu who took it. He follows the paint. Turns out, Ryu was trying to trade Urto's Dusk Ball for a strong sphere. The shopkeeper is worried and doesn't do it, but Indy and Rubella are there, and they're more than happy to do so. That's when Urto arrives to tell them to give back his Pokeball. A battle ensues, Urto by himself and Indy and Rubella, and despite Ryu stealing his ball, he sees that he's doing it for his Pokemon, so he kind of forgives them. It becomes Darmanitan and Galarian Darmanitan versus Sableye. Sableye is struggling in the battle, and Grafaiai jumps in only for it to get demolished, so Urto decides to Mega Evolve. It's still fighting 2-on-1 though, so it's having to defend against everything. Finally, when he tells Ryu that he isn't going to run away because he's fighting for one of his pals, the Dusk Ball awakens. As Sableye is being overwhelmed and about to be knocked out from the Dusk Ball arrives the secret Pokemon. It's a Dragonite. Dragonite then proceeds to take care of both Darmanitans with Dragon Rush and Dragon Breath, causing them to be KO'd. As Indy and Rubella leave, Dragonite goes back into its Dusk Ball. Urto then continues to chase the two, who leave in the car, and meanwhile, Ryu thanks Urto. Then, as Ryu is walking, we see Roy looking for Urto. He asks Ryu about Urto, saying that he's his friend, so Ryu points him to where he went. As he's leaving, Roy tells Ryu that his Grafaiai painting is awesome, which makes both of them happy, and that's where we end this episode. A very different episode to the usual. The other episodes we've gotten about people's story are typically done in flashback form, but here it becomes a solo Urto episode in the present day with a character of the day. Here we see that despite his abrasive nature, Urto isn't a bad guy. He has his own struggles and issues, and he has things he cares about and worries about. I think for me, the thing that actually makes him as a character hard to root for isn't actually him, and this episode kind of made me realize that. It's really his dynamic with the group that just doesn't work, in my opinion. He works way better in situations like this, where he's solo or he's with another character he can bounce off of more naturally. Maybe as the series goes on, I'll feel differently and the chemistry with him and the group will improve, but this episode really showed me that Urto can work as a character. I also love the fact that Molly just allows this to happen. She basically did the same thing in her youth, leaving her life as Nurse Joy, so she's seen this happen. And as a former Nurse Joy, she's probably seen kids run away before, so it's nothing new to her and she just expects it to work out. Just a subtle thing about her character, but I love how it's done. The most bizarre thing in this episode though is the writing for Roy. They had to make up an argument for this episode to work, so Roy has to be the bad guy. I have no problems with that. But him randomly threatening to kick out Urto out of the Brave Olivine is so far out of its character that it's obviously terribly written. And his turnaround is the same. He so quickly realizes that the rocks mean a lot to Urto and goes to grab him again. It all feels so rushed to try to get the solo episode to work, and you can really feel the authorial pen in this situation, but it just doesn't work and doesn't make for the best watch. Honestly, this could have been a solo episode without any of the other Rising Voltaclers and just have Roy show up next episode out of nowhere. It's not like they haven't done this prior. They did this with Liko just a couple episodes ago. Finally, the Dragonite being the surprise Pokemon I am a bit disappointed in. Yes, I know that they've recently revealed Mega Dragonite, so next week as part of their marketing, they're gonna have it Mega Evolve in the anime. But to me, it just feels so wasted. Dragonite's such a common anime Pokemon. Ash had it in the series prior. I just wish it was something unique. I think what makes it worse is that this storyline is pretty similar to the Terrapago's Pendant and the Rayquaza from the Ancient Pokeball, except Dragonite isn't as legendary as one of those two Pokemon, so it just feels more disappointing. Overall, a solid episode, especially a good one when it's focused on Urto and Ryu, but not Roy. Since this is seemingly a two-parter and next episode both Roy and Urto will battle, I'm just hoping to see a great battle next episode. I feel like we haven't had that in the anime in a while. Let's see where the story of Urto goes. Episode 107 of Pokemon Horizons titled The Two of Us as Friends just dropped, and in this episode, the anime debuts a brand new Mega in an intense battle. So, let's talk about it. The title, The Two of Us as Friends, refers not only to Roy and Urto this episode, but also Diana and Hamber, who start this episode. We see that Diana has captured a new Pokemon. What is it? We'll find out next episode. But the two former allies work together and seem to be having a good time. Diana is aware that after the Mount Pericarp incident, Hamber is on their side. Here, she learns from him that Spinel captured 5 of the 6 hero Pokemon. That's massive info for our heroes after what else happens this episode. Spinel is trying to end the Voltaclers once and for all. However, Diana says that with the determination of Liko and Amithio, they are going to stop Spinel. It's an interesting proclamation here, telling us who the main characters of the story are. Hamber says that he still has things he needs to do internally, so for now, he's going to continue to be a part of the Explorers, and that's where they separate. We then see Urto head to a Voltacler hidden facility. Inside, Indy and Rubella are talking to Spinel, and Urto's eavesdropping when he's caught by Spinel's BEM. Gravity is used on him to stop him on his tracks. He however manages to throw Sableye away from the effects of the move, allowing it to get away while he's captured. While captured and on his way to his cell, he notices the 6 hero Pokemon that are in the glass cage and comments about it. He obviously doesn't know about the 6 hero Pokemon, but still. He then is put in an empty room. Outside, Roy's looking for Urto when Urto's Sableye appears. It points them towards where Urto is. Meanwhile, Spinel is watching all of this from a distance from a camera. He has seemingly moved the 6 hero Pokemon already now, and he knows that Hamber's not working with them. He says that he's going to nip the Voltaclers in the bud before they can become a flood, because currently they are drops of water. A nice metaphor for what the Voltaclers are currently doing, slowly getting people on their sides one by one, which really matches the visuals of the intro. Urto's in his room trying to figure out what to do when he pulls out his Dusk Ball. He thinks to himself maybe he shouldn't have ran away. That's where the door's busted down and we see that it's Roy and his Pokemon. It was his Sableye who got them inside, and Roy apologized to Urto for not understanding that the rocks meant something to him. But they don't have time to be sentimental, so they both head out. However, they are stopped in their tracks by Indy and Rubella, the two who say that they baited Urto here in order to capture both him and Roy and the other Voltaclers who would come to save him. This then leads to a battle. Indy and Rubella switch Pokemon this time, and their Darmanitans are now in their Zen mode form. The two are also using a bunch of Rapscas to use gravity to stop our heroes and their Pokemon's movement. However, they're not affected by it, and that's because Zen mode Darmanitan from the back is using Psychic to help Galarian Zen mode Darmanitan move around freely. It's a tough battle, and our heroes even managed to knock out regular Zen mode Darmanitan with Shadow Snake at one point, but Rapska uses Revival Blessings and brings it back up. And this really annoyed me. The inconsistency with the Strong Sphere and how Pokemon under the influence of it work makes no sense to me. They're supposed to be wild, running on instinct, yet these Rapskas know exactly what they need to do when they're told by a trainer, whether it's to use gravity or a healing move when their trainer calls for it. Don't establish that the Strong Sphere makes Pokemon not hear their trainer, yet the Pokemon still do exactly what the trainers ask for. Our hero's Pokemon then ultimately begin losing, despite their best efforts. That's when Urto talks to his Dusk Ball, telling him that he wants to save everyone. We even get to see a flashback of young Urto and someone telling the Dusk Ball to help Urto when he's protecting everyone, and that's when Dragonite comes out again. But similar to earlier, Rubella tells the Rapska to all use gravity, and they all listen to her again. Again, makes no sense since they're clearly under the influence of the Strong Sphere here, but that brings down Dragonite. However, we then see light surrounding it, and Urto realizes that the light is going to his Mega Ring. So, for the first time in franchise history, we get to see an animated version of Dragonite, as it Mega evolves into Mega Dragonite, one of the newest Megas of the series. After that, the battle is a wrap. A Dragon Rush from Dragonite KOs all the Rapskas, stopping the gravity, and that allows all of the Pokemon to get up. After getting up, Roy decides to Mega Evolve his Lucario. Then, a combination of Hyper Beam and Flash Cannon is enough to end the battle. Roy and Urto then escape, which I wish they would have shown us instead of just them cutting to them on their way back, but that's just a nitpick. Urto then has a major epiphany. Roy thinks that he might have accomplished his goal because now the Dragonite helped him, but Urto realizes that it only helped him because he wanted to protect everyone. This encounter changes the way Urto thinks about strength. Before, he just wanted to be strong just for himself, but now he wants to be strong in order to protect people dear to him. Then, back at the ship, he tells everyone that they raided the explorer's base and he helped protect Roy. As he's heading back to his room, he sees Molly outside waiting for him. She didn't tell anyone that he ran away, just like I predicted, because she'd done this prior, and she tells Urto that it helps you learn more about yourself and where you return to. The episode ends with Urto accepting that he is a member of the Voltaclers. This episode as a whole is good, but it also contains things that annoy me. The episode helps set up the return of Diana. We get to see that her and Hamber are in fact friends again after being enemies for a while, and their friendship leads to our heroes knowing more about the villain's plot. We also learn that Spinel is well aware of everything that's going on, including Hamber, and that his primary goal is still to stop the Voltaclers before he moves on with his other goals. However, we do learn that he doesn't know that Fried is still alive. He thinks that the Voltaclers are leaderless, and he hasn't realized that Roy has taken over that mantle. But I think the most important thing is that finally, this episode makes me like Urto a lot more. His brash personality still rubs me the wrong way sometimes, but now, he as a character has changed. He's a lot less selfish, and his goals are now to protect people rather than to fight for himself. And him and Roy actually feel like friends now, instead of just people who argue with each other all the time, and Urto feeling is someone who just tagged along. It feels like things have finally settled in the story, and now, with Diana coming back, our heroes can start finally going on the offensive towards the villains. Next episode when she arrives, I'm sure we're going to get some sort of plan as to what the next goal for our heroes are. Currently, they feel a bit aimless. Hopefully, our heroes can come up with something and work towards that for the series. Finally, let's talk about the battles as a whole. I liked how Mega Dragonite looked this episode. I liked its design from the beginning, but I think seeing it animated makes it look a lot better, especially after realizing that it attacks from its tail pearl. That's actually pretty neat. I already complained about the inconsistency of the strong sphere this episode, so I'm not going to do it again, but I just hope the writers realize that while writing a battle, yes, you want to have our heroes on the defensive. That's what makes for a good battle. But you also don't want to allow the villains to do things that make no sense and completely negate the established rules of the world. In this episode, the strong sphere just basically allows them to control more powerful Pokemon. There's no negative feedback to them using the strong spheres here. And if that's the case, then why are heroes so against it? You see the reason? So overall, a solid episode. And I'm glad this episode happened because now it feels like the story can finally move on and establish a goal. Episode 108 of Pokemon Horizons titled Diana Comes Back just dropped, and in this episode we get some massive information for the future of the series as well as a battle between Diana and Liko. So let's discuss all of it. I'm a little bit ill, so sorry for my voice, but the episode begins with our heroes waiting for Diana to arrive. Dot is still collecting coins for Gimmighoul, and I have a feeling that that thing is going to evolve faster than we think. Regardless, she does eventually arrive in a Rev Room car with shades on looking cool. After greeting everyone, she shows them her new capture, a Rev Room, and another Pokeball she has, capture she made with the help of Hamber. She tells her heroes that he's working from the inside to foil Spinel's plot, and on top of that, she might have learned something to fully stop Lockweem. After her and Naruto meet, the two people who are on oddly similar wavelengths, she gets down to the informational portion. She learned what happened in Mount Paracarp from Liko, how despite Tarapago's purifying Lockweem, the explorers were able to take it over and create strong spheres with the remaining Lockweem, and the reason that seemingly happened is that Tarapago's didn't have enough power. Diana explains that its stellar type form needs more power than just a 6-hero Pokemon. It might need power from all 18 types, then the Lockweem can fully be stopped. So they're gonna need to get the help of the 6-hero Pokemon again, and that's when Diana also tells them that Spinel has the 6-hero Pokemon captured. Urto confirms this, saying he saw them in the explorer's base being taken somewhere else, and Diana thinks that might be because they're worried about Hamber poking around. They try to learn more about Tarapago's to try and confirm Diana's theory at that point by calling Briar, but she's too busy finishing up her book, so for now they'll just have to wait and come up with a plan. That's when Diana sees Liko's Charcadet practicing. She wants to help train it and wants to do a 2-on-2 battle with Liko. The battle is Liko's Meowscarada and Charcadet versus Diana's Arcanine and her new Pokemon, a Rotom Wash. Diana notices early in the battle that Charcadet will step in front of the fire without even being told to do so because it can absorb fire to boost its power. So she has her Arcanine use Flare Blitz on Meowscarada, and when as expected, Charcadet jumps in even before Liko tells it anything. She has a Rotom Wash use Hydro Pump on it, forcing Meowscarada to save it using its Vine and take the Flare Blitz head on, KOing it from the battle in the process. It seems like Diana was trying to teach Charcadet a lesson about trust, as she tells it that during battle, while it's good that it wants to protect others, it can also hurt its partner by having to be saved, so it has to trust its partner in battle. The battle then continues as a 2-on-1. Charcadet's able to jump on Arcanine's face to avoid an extreme speed and use Clear Smog to distract it. Then it's able to dodge a Hydro Pump from Rotom Wash and gets extremely up close to it. It then picks it up and spins it around and around as it's using Hydro Pump and throws it in the air before using Takedown and KOing it. That makes it a 1-on-1. Diana then has Arcanine use Flamethrower to start, which only boosts Charcadet, but that allows its Embers to turn into Fire Spin, a new move. However, the battle then quickly ends after that with an Arcanine Extreme Speed. After the battle, Liko thanks her grandmother for the training. Then, as the nighttime arrives, we see a feast in the ship. We learn that Diana will be leaving that night, but she'll be back after investigations. She wants to meet Freed again in the future. For now, she tells everyone that they should do what they can, and for our heroes, that will be finding the 6 heroes. But where are they going to find out where the 6 heroes were taken? Diana has intel from Hamber saying they're probably in Exceed facility somewhere, but he can't say too much because he's being watched by Chouse. So the kids decide that they should contact Crave, the former director of Exceed, before Spinel took over, and start from there. The episode ends with Liko thinking to herself, "Wait for us," for the 6 heroes as the night rolls on. My voice is getting worse and worse in this recording. I can feel it. Sorry about that. Lots of major revelations. That's the theme of this episode. Let's start small. Diana has 2 new Pokemon. That's pretty cool. This show is going out of its way to show us that not only have the kids progressed in 1 year, but so have the adults. And I really like that everyone is shown to be growing in some sort of way. It helps boost the theme of growth in the story even more. And during this episode, even Charcadet grows as it learns a new move thanks to Diana's training. The other major revelation is that Hammer is now working with Diana. I already had the feeling that would have been the case after the Ametheo thing, but it's cool to see that it finally came to fruition. That means our heroes are now slowly clawing back some of the advantage that Spinel had to start the series, and a person from the inside like Hammer and a person outside like Ametheo could be an interesting combo. I want to see what their efforts are going to be like. Finally, the biggest one is the addition of the 12 additional Pokemon types you need for Lockweum. And honestly, for the theme of the show, that makes sense. It was always weird that our heroes, while adventuring on their own in the first half of the series, were technically doing someone else's unfulfilled work with their Pokemon, but now that we know that it'll require all 18 types, it gives this story a more personal touch to each one of our heroes and the crew members, because we know that all of their Pokemon are probably going to be used in this next attempt. Who are the additional 12 types or Pokemon going to be? That can be its own topic that you can make a video on, but here's a theory from my good friend Kuro Blitz that kinda gets at the idea. I think this will make for a much better final conflict than the one we originally got, because it'll force everyone, including the crew of the Voltacklers, to get involved. And all of this involvement is massively exciting to me. There's a lot of story potential here if done right. Episode 109 of Pokemon Horizons titled, How Tinkatuff Makes the Ultimate Hammer just dropped, and in this episode, Tinkatuff works on improving her hammer, while our heroes fall into a trap. What happens? Let's talk about it. This is an episode with a singular focus, but there's another major element in the background, which makes it a pre-episode for the upcoming climax. The main focus of this episode is Tinkatuff working on improving her hammer. In the beginning of the episode, she's looking around for metal in the ship, but no dice. We then see Sidian and Coral advertising the strong spheres as celebrities. Our heroes are watching this from their phone and upset, but there's nothing they can do about it. That's when they get a response from Director Crave telling our heroes to meet up in a specific distribution center somewhere in Paldea. So everyone gets ready to go and prepare things. We then see Dot's Gimmighoul go down to the junkyard where Dot's Tinkatuff is. There are workers working there and tell the Tinkatuff that she can use whatever she finds. She finds some metal that she really likes but has to stop hammering to help out Gimmighoul, who's being harassed by a Scrafty. She sends it packing. Great big sister energy. However, the workers take the scrap metal she was planning to use, so she's sad. She heads back to the ship and Gimmighoul feels bad for her. We then see how the celebrity life of Coral and Sidian isn't glamorous all the time. Sidian wants to eat udon at a local place, but he's spotted by kids and surrounded and can't. He has to be saved by a lady with glasses. The same thing with Coral, who wants to wait for strawberry cream puffs, but she's surrounded. And she's given the cream puffs, despite saying prior that waiting for it is part of the fun. And once again, she's saved by a lady with glasses. Turns out, this lady is their manager. The manager walks them up to a Galarian taxi and tells them to go to Paldea. The taxi driver doesn't want to go there because the natural enemies of Corviknight are in Paldea, but he sees Coral and is smitten, so decides to go. The brave Olivine then takes off and goes towards where Crave said. Tinkatuff is still sad and walks to the top of the ship, and when she looks down, she spots the car from earlier taking the metal scraps from earlier, so she jumps down on it. The car stops and she's about to start hammering, but she notices a family of Scovette trying to get some food. She helps them out, and then helps out two Greedents. However, once again, this makes her lose the truck. As she runs through the forest, she sees a Corviknight taxi in the air. She gets super excited. Corviknight's steel feathers are perfect for her. She then lines up a rock and sends it flying at the Corviknight, causing the taxi to get hit and fall down. This is the same taxi carrying Coral and Sidian, so they're sent down too. When the taxi driver and Corviknight see Tinkatuff running up, they get terrified and start running away. A pretty funny visual. Then, Tinkatuff starts gathering these feathers and begins hammering away. Dot and Coral and Sidian spot each other. When Coral asks Dot why she's not in the harbor, Dot quickly realizes that that email from Director Crave was a trap and not real. However, she can't dwell on that right now. Tinkatuff has begun hammering, which means now it's the ultimate focus for her. Coral sends out her Glalie to attack Tinkatuff, but Dot has Quaxwell stop it. Sidian then brings out his Garganacl, which hits Salt Cure on Quaxwell. That stops it from being able to dodge a sheer cold. Dot knows she has to protect Tinkatuff because she's not going to stop hammering once she starts, so Dot has Gimmighoul attack with Astonish. But it doesn't do much and is only really biding time for Tinkatuff. When Gimmighoul gets hit by Ice Spinner, it falls and some of its coins fall out. However, showing its growth and love for Tinkatuff, it forgoes collecting its coins and instead hands the Corviknight feather to Tinkatuff. Eventually, that pays off as Tinkatuff's hammer glows bright red before an explosion of light, and here we see a brand new hammer made. This hammer is massive, however, and incredibly heavy. Dot, Quaxwell, and Gimmighoul all have to help Tinkatuff lift it, and once she does, that's when she begins evolving. Tinkatuff evolves into Tinkaton. With Tinkaton not able to wield the hammer, she sends Glalie flying when it comes towards her with Ice Spinner. Coral and Sidian go chasing after Glalie, and Dot tries to warn the others that they're walking into a trap. However, it's too late, as the episode ends with Liko and Roy facing off against the explorers as a battle is about to take place. To me, this is a really fun episode. It focuses on Tinkatuff, but it's leading to something bigger, the climax of the arc. It's surprising that Tinkatuff is evolving here quickly. She hasn't done too many battles, but I think that's more of a function of Dot herself not doing as much battles as Liko and Roy. But her evolution now tells you that the story is picking up, because now having a Tinkatuff isn't going to be powerful enough for the story. Surprisingly, they didn't do this with Liko's Hatchram. I wonder if that's happening soon too. I do think the episode is either setting up the Dot save or the Coral and Sidian return for the climax battle. Either way, it's going to be interesting to see what direction the story goes as the battle begins. As far as the evolution itself goes, I actually love the fact that Tinkaton here is getting a unique hammer in the anime. Unlike the games, where the hammer is blue, this one is red, and that's due to the red taxi door. It's a cool visual and makes Dot's Tinkaton really stand out. As the Mega Voltage arc seems to be coming to a climax, I'm interested to see how they'll be setting up the next arc and where this current battle is going. I am really curious. Episode 110 of Pokemon Horizons, titled The 6 Heroes Bare Their Fangs, just dropped, and this is part 1 of the climax of Mega Voltage. This is a battle focus episode, so let's talk about it. This episode primarily focuses on 2 battles. The first is Liko, Roy, and Urto battling the explorers, and the second is Dot taking on Chalice. I'm going to start off with the Dot battle. Dot is heading towards where the rest of the squad is when Hamber appears by her. He asks her to help him rescue Director Cervantes, and Dot decides to do so, trusting that the others can handle themselves. The two eventually get close to where the director is being held at. Hamber asks Dot if they can use her hacking skills to open the door instead of just brute forcing it, but before they can rescue the former director, they are attacked. It's Chalice and her Medicham. It's here that we learn that Chalice is actually the person who taught Hamber how to battle. At least that's the implication I felt. She's basically his elder. Also, he can't attack her because he would be expelled from the explorers if he did, meaning he wouldn't be able to be a spy from the inside. Well, this seems really strange, as if he's working with Spinel now, why would she allow him to stick around despite knowing that he has betrayed them? We learn why. She says she has her own motives, and that seems to be separate from what Spinel does. Something I predicted a long time ago and makes this really interesting. So, Hamber chooses to back down. Instead, it's up to Dot. Dot's Tinkatuff takes on Chalice's Medicham. Chalice uses Strong Sphere to increase Medicham's focus even more and power it up. At first, Dot struggles as Medicham dodges or blocks everything that Tinkatuff throws at it. And on the opposite end, Medicham is able to easily and cleanly land attacks on Dot's Tinkatuff. It takes a lot of damage in this battle, but that's when Dot tells Tinkatuff to just focus on her hammer so that one hit can take her out. Chalice tries to stop it multiple times, but Dot bluffs at one point in the battle, causing Medicham to stand back, and this buys Tinkatuff enough time to really focus and put all of her power into her hammer. This eventually leads to her learning Gigaton Hammer, and one major hit from Gigaton Hammer, and Medicham is KO'd. Chalice has 3 Pokemon in her belt, but we only know 2, and here we won't learn more, as she teleports away with Xatu. Dot's able to eventually hack her way through, and they rescue Cervantes. He says that the explorers are experimenting with super strong spheres, and he opposed them, which is why he was locked away. But now they have to move and head back towards the battlefield where the rest of the heroes are, and that is the end of Dot's section of the episode. The other part of the episode is the explorers battle. Liko, Urto, and Roy all learn that the email was indeed fabricated. The explorers then bring out all the 6 heroes' Pokemon. Our heroes want to save them and tell the explorers to let them go, and the explorers do. Open up the box they're in, but immediately use a Super Strong Sphere, an item that up to now didn't exist and hadn't been hinted towards. The Super Strong Sphere adds Lockrium crystals in the Pokemon's body, and according to Coral and Sidian, who are already there to watch this battle, despite Glalie being sent packing last episode moments prior to this, extracts the maximum amount of power that Lockrium has to offer. This probably also makes them more feral than regular strong spheres. I will say, unveiling something like this out of nowhere is kind of surprising to me. This feels like such an endgame thing that you build towards that I'm wondering if the rumors that this series is going to end way earlier than people think might end up being true. Regardless, our heroes can't get through to them anymore, so they'll have to battle them to stop them. The battle begins with Lapras putting out mist in the battlefield, making it hard for our heroes to see. This leads to Urto being in the back foot early as a Sableye is hit by Kleavor and has to be saved by Cap when it's about to be hit by Arboliva. Meanwhile, Galarian Moltres is attacking Crocalor and Meowscarada, but Roy brings out his Kilowattrel to have Crocalor jump on its back so it can fly around and attack from the air. Then, Meowscarada has to deflect attacks from Kleavor, while Hatchram has to be protected by Terapagos. More mist from Lapras makes it harder for our heroes to see, so Liko uses Hatchram's psychic powers to help Meowscarada dodge Kleavor's attacks. While Liko and Roy are trying to find avenues to counterattack, everything is going wrong for Urto. He tries to have Sableye attack Gouging Fire, but instead gets burned. Then, his Power Gem does no damage. Cap then attacks Gouging Fire to save Sableye, but takes damage from Gouging Fire in the process, and Urto is mortified by the strength of these Pokemon. It then cuts to the majority of the dot battle that I talked about earlier, and when we return to this battle, our heroes are fully on the defensive, and Liko's trying to figure out how they can advance. That's when she remembers what her grandmother told her, and Terapagos' ability to absorb Lockweum. So, she has Urto and Roy buy her Terapagos time, similar to the battle in Laqua. All three of them then boost up their Pokemon, Liko and Roy by Terrasolizing, and Urto by Mega Evolving. This allows them to fight back against the 6 hero Pokemon and be on the offensive, allowing enough time for Terapagos to charge, and eventually Terapagos, just like in Laqua, absorbs Lockweum, freeing the 6 hero Pokemon from their current state. We see that Spinel is watching this battle from a distance, and he gets a call from Chalice telling him that she's been overrun, but he says that the director's role is no longer needed. He talks about how Terapagos is the only threat the Voltaclers have, so he once again has their explorers use the Super Strong Spheres again on the 6 hero Pokemon, basically resetting the fight and making half of this episode entirely pointless. The only difference here is that Cleavor attacks Terapagos before it's expected, and Terapagos gets KO'd, so now our heroes are on the ropes. And that's where the episode ends. What an absolutely terrible episode. I try to be mostly positive about this series because I think for the most part, while there have been missteps along the way, the show generally does try and progress the plot in some way. And even if the plot isn't interesting, the episode is engaging enough. Here though, I dare say this is one of the worst Pokemon episodes in a very long time. Half the episode is fine, that being the dot half. Even though her battle was static and visually boring, at least there was some progression made. We learned that Chalice has her own motives and she's keeping things secret from Spinel, and Dot's Tinkaton gets stronger and learns a new move, so at least there's something there. But the other half of the episode, absolutely nothing happens. Sure, we get some battles, but A, the battles are not engaging or visually fun at all, so all you have to rely on is the story, which a lot of time would be fine, except in this case, B, the story was terrible. Unlike previously, the betrayal from Spinel's email wasn't set up, and that could be fine if it was an insane surprise, but in this case, all it was, hey, we got an email from Cervantes, so let's go there. Surprise! It's supposed to feel like a big deal, but we've also seen Inda and Rubella way too often recently for this to ring out any impact. Then, the Super Strong Sphere experiment. This thing comes out of nowhere. The entire arc leading up to this point has been about how Spinel and Exceed have been going out and trying to get these strong spheres and spread them in the market, and our heroes are trying to stop that. But at the end of the arc, all of a sudden, we learn that there's another brand new experiment and another item that we've never heard of until the battle begins? What type of storytelling is that? And all of this could be maybe overlooked if the battles were cool enough to justify this new random item. Instead, this is one of the most poorly animated episodes of Pokemon I have ever seen. There's no motion in any of the Pokemon's movement or any motion in any of their moves. Everything is incredibly stiff, looks awkward, and there is no impact to anything that happens in this episode battle-wise. Early in the battle, there's a moment where Hatchram uses her psychic ability to help Meowscarada dodge Cleavor's attack in the mist. And if you didn't watch this episode, you would think, oh man, that sounds really cool. But try to think of the worst way this can be done, and that's exactly how it's done here. It looks so bad that if you watch this without context about what Liko said, you'd be wondering why all the Pokemon all of a sudden were moving at 2 frames a second in the middle of the battle. Absolutely nothing looks super strong about these Super Strong Spheres. Instead, it actually makes the Pokemon look super sluggish and weak. Our heroes don't have to worry about it at all. And that's the case for all of the heroes' attacks under the influence of this thing. And all of this would maybe be acceptable if that battle led to something. Instead, the absolute worst thing you can do in a story takes place. After our heroes make progress and stop the Strong Sphere, the battle just completely hard resets. And it's not done in a way where it's drama and tension like, oh my god, how are our heroes gonna do it again? No, it just happens. The explorers just use the Strong Sphere again, causing me to question what the point of it all was if they could just infinitely use that thing over and over again. We're supposed to feel devastated that, oh my gosh, Terapagos has been knocked out, how are they gonna win? But I feel absolutely nothing because the build up to it is so abysmal that by the time it happens, I've completely checked out of this episode. What an absolute travesty to what's supposed to be a climactic battle to this arc. This arc had a lot of issues for sure, but I'd hoped that it would end in a way where they would be able to set up the next arc, and I would be excited to see where the story goes. Instead, this episode and this ending to this arc has been so terrible that instead, I just want this battle to end now, and I don't care what our heroes do. What an absolutely horrid episode. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm being too harsh on this episode. Let me know your thoughts on the comments down below, because I really do want to hear what you guys think, especially if you're someone who liked this episode. Episode 111 of Pokemon Horizons titled Drive for Greater Heights with Unwavering Strength just dropped, and this is the final episode of the Mega Voltage arc. How will the battle against the 6 hero end? Let's talk about it. If you watched my previous review, then you know that I really despised the last episode, and while this episode is a follow-up to that, it feels significantly better due to progress actually taking place in the plot of the series. The battle from the last episode continues, and the animation here is significantly better. Not only that, actual storytelling takes place in the battle itself, and immediately as well, as the second dose of Locrium from the Super Strong Sphere makes the 6 hero Pokemon even more dangerous. So much so that one hit from any of the hero Pokemon is enough to take down our hero's Pokemon. In fact, all of them, including Captain Pikachu himself, and at the end, left standing Charcadet, Mega Dragonite, and Lucario. When it looks like it's about to be a 3v6 though, out of nowhere arrives a Meteo with his Zygarde, raining down 1,000 arrows on 6 hero Pokemon. He decides to help out our heroes as Zygarde and his Corviknight take on Coral and Sidian, while he has a Cerulite for the frontline battle. And this is where we get to see how much Liko and Roy in particular have grown, as they're able to use strategy in their battle. Roy Mega evolves his Lucario, and Liko has a Meteo use Bitter Blade on Cerulite so that Flash Fire can activate to give it more strength. And when Charcadet's battling Gouging Fire, Liko has it calm down by reminding it of its battle with Arcanine, and uses that same strategy and has Charcadet jump on Gouging Fire's eyes. When Gouging Fire uses Burning Bulwark, Charcadet's able to absorb that and send out a powerful Ember at it. And Roy sees that Urto is struggling with this battle, not knowing what to do and scared. We'll get to that in a moment. And Roy remembers their battle with the Steelix early in this arc, so he has Urto bring his Dragonite near Lapras to bait Galarian Moltres, causing the two to collide. They're about to finish the battle off with Hyper Beam and Flash Cannon respectively when the two Pokemon are both hit out of nowhere and KO'd by our Balava. Charcadet is stomped by Gouging Fire and KO'd, and that is followed up by us seeing Corviknight and Cerulite being done and Zygarde also being KO'd with Self-Destruct, meaning every available Pokemon in the battle is done. When Liko screams at the 6 hero Pokemon to stop, the power of the Strong Sphere also happens to end, and all 6 hero Pokemon are also done, meaning this battle is over. Our heroes can't stop the explorers as they take the 6 hero Pokemon in trucks with them, and they are all left licking their wounds. Eventually, Dot, Cervantes, and Hamber arrive. The aftermath of the episode is a lot of discussion. Our heroes give Cervantes the data about the negatives of the Strong Sphere, but he says that since he's not a director anymore, he doesn't have power, he can't do anything. But that's when Meteo speaks up, telling him basically not to be a coward by actually doing something. He's the former director. That actually means something even if he's not the current director anymore. Meteo himself, he's going to gather his Zygardes and get stronger. And if he manages to stop Spinel, then he'll figure out what his next plan is. In this case, it isn't about having a plan and then going for that specific plan. It's about figuring it out as you go. And that seems to break through to the former director as he thanks Meteo for inspiring him. The 3 former explorers then leave and tell our heroes that they will cross paths again in the future. As our heroes are discussing heading back, Urto says he won't head back. He's depressed because he was useless in battle. And I didn't speak about it much in the battle itself, but Urto was terrified the whole time. He didn't do anything by himself and was left shocked and unable to battle. He's frustrated at himself and says he has to get stronger. He's gonna go on a training journey, not return to the ship. But hearing that, both Crocolore and Charcadet come out of their Pokeball to agree with him. Everyone, Liko, Roy, Dot, also want to get stronger, and they want to do it all together. They don't know where they'll do it, but that's when they get a call. It's Briar, who has all the energy in the world again. She has finished her book about Terapagos, and when our heroes tell her they have questions about Terapagos, she tells them to meet her in person. Where's she? Blueberry Academy. That's right, the next arc is going to be in Blueberry Academy, sister school to Narana Academy, and a battle-focused school, and that's going to allow our heroes to train and get stronger. Liko says that Anne is also there as a foreign transfer student, and they feel like they'll be able to get answers from Briar too. It's a perfect next step for them. So our heroes head back to the ship to tell the adults the idea that they have as they head to their next destination. Finally, when we go back to Spinel's lair, we see all of the 6 hero Pokemon in front of him. He was able to see his experiment that he did come to fruition, and now he feels like Terapagos can't stop him anymore. So with that, he can now move on to the next phase of his plan, whatever they may be, and that's where we end the episode. After a very shaky last episode, this episode does a great job of redeeming this finale. Everything that you need to happen in a finale of an arc takes place here. Good battles, and more importantly, good character moments and moments of growth to lead to the next arc. Urto's fear and struggle really show in this episode, and he grows by vowing to get stronger and not be a hindrance the next time. Cervantes' lost confidence after his loss of directorial position is questioned and removed by the powerful words of his son that he never spent too much time with. The former and the insider explorers all vowing to do their best to stop Spinel and his ambitions, and Liko, Roy, and Dot all show that they've grown as trainers, being able to take on more higher level battles and take on much more powerful enemies even to a stalemate. All of them still pushing to grow stronger by going to Blueberry Academy really shows how far all of them have come, and it's a good parallel to the third arc of the pre-time skip Horizons where they wanted to get stronger, so they went and did the Narana Academy classes. That was one of the best arcs of the pre-time skip era, and I really hope this one coming up will be the same for the future. Since we're at the end of Mega Voltage, let's talk about the arc as a whole. This one felt like the weakest arc of Horizons. Although I can understand why, it still feels like there's a lot left on the table. The positives of the arc is that the growth of our heroes were real. The loss of Freed, pushing our heroes into leadership roles, is a great change to see. Our heroes using their experiences to bring back the old crew was a slightly long yet important mission, and that leading to the confirmation from Freed himself that he's still around is a good surprise waiting to happen. I really like what they've done after the Freed reveal too. He's rarely been brought up, only Diane has really done so, and that builds anticipation for his return. On the slightly negative though, replacing Freed as Orto, a character I really couldn't stand at the beginning of Mega Voltage. I've slowly grown on him over time, and I can see what they might be going for with this character. A brash, outwardly confident kid who has real insecurities that he has to try and figure out in order to capture Rayquaza for himself, and that's probably still his goal, but getting away from that for a while has made his character more of an individual one, because prior, it felt like he was just doing what Roy did in the pre-time skip arc, except way worse. But now that we know about his Dragonite and he doesn't really have much control or experiences with battling with it, it can allow for growth potential for both Pokemon and him as a character. The good thing is that there's still things we have questions about, which is good for the next arc. Besides the obvious of what is Spinel planning with the strong sphere, we also don't know about the recovery of the Black Rayquaza. What is it up to? What is Freed up to? And while we know what Amethyos' plan is, we don't know what Cervantes and Hamber have in store. All of these things are things that we can look forward to, and I can't wait for the next arc, because hopefully, now that the introduction is settled, the pacing of the story can pick up, and we start getting answers for a lot of these questions. But what about you guys? What did you guys think about this episode and this arc as a whole? Leave it all in the comments down below. I really can't wait to read what you guys think. Other than that, thank you so much for 2,000 subscribers. I truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.